All right. Good afternoon, football fans. Big Al here on this Tuesday, January 6, 2026. And welcome to the regular season finale of the week that was, as we'll look at the player and team statistical numbers from every game from week 18 in the National Football League. Also coming up, we'll have the final look at our power rankings for 2025 and the Super Wildcard weekend schedule, as well as the final standings in the NFL. All those stats and the standings will be from ESPN.com. Just go to ESPN.com/NFL and hit stats to get all the numbers from every game this week. And then go to ESPN.com/NFL and then hit the standings and you'll see everything there. From the traditional standings to the playoff standings, which we'll be taking a look at. All right. And the totals and point spreads are from the Sports Alerts app, which you can download on your phone right now. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. And let's waste no more time and jump in to this Week 18 edition of the week that was. And we'll start with the two games on Saturday, and they were both pretty big. The first game was to determine the winner of the NFC South. Well, sort of. Here, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeat the Carolina Panthers by a final score of 16-14. Both teams will finish the season 8-9, and I will tell you about the fate of the NFC South champion when we get to the Saints-Falcons game a little later on. But for now, let's start with the quarterbacks from this game, starting with the Bucs. Baker Mayfield was 16 of 22 for 203 yards. That's 198 net passing yards. 9.2 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 2 sacks taken for 5 yards. He had a 73.6 QBR and a passer rating of 97.3. And for Bryce Young, he went 24 of 35 for 266 yards at 7.6 yards per pass with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception with no sacks taken. He had a 45.1 QBR and a passer rating of 98. All right. As far as rushing goes, we'll start with the Buccaneers. Bucky Irving was 26 carries for 85 yards at 3.3 yards per run. Baker Mayfield ran 4 times for 31 yards at 7.8 per run. And Rachaad White ran 7 times for 23 yards at 3.3 per run. Tampa Bay as a team ran 42 times for 140 yards, averaging 3.3 yards per run with no touchdowns. And for the Panthers, not much to speak of here. Chuba Hubbard, 5 carries, 10 yards, only an average of 2 yards per run. Rico Dowdle, not much better, 7 carries, 10 yards at 1.4 per run. All told, the Panthers ran only 14 times for 19 yards at 1.4 yards per run. On to the receivers. First for Tampa, Cade Otton. 7 receptions, 94 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. He averaged 13.4 per catch. Mike Evans, 2 receptions, 34 yards on 2 targets. That's a 17 average. Rachaad White, 2 catches, 18 yards on 2 targets. That's an average of 9. Tampa Bay receivers had 16 receptions for 203 yards, 12.7 yards per reception with 1 touchdown on 22 targets. And for the Panthers, Tetairoa McMillan, 4 catches, 85 yards on 6 targets. average of 21.3 per catch. Jalen Coker, 6 receptions, 47 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. That's 7.8 per catch. Tommy Tremble, 3 receptions, 38 yards, and a touchdown on 4 targets. 12.7 per catch. Bryson Tremaine, 2 catches, 27 yards on 2 targets, 13.5 average. Xavier Legette, 3 catches, 32 yards, or rather 3 catches for 22 yards on 4 targets. He averaged 7.3. Enrico Dowdle with 2 catches for 20 yards on 2 targets. He averaged 10 per catch. Panthers receivers had 24 receptions for 266, averaging 11.1 per reception with 2 touchdowns from Coker and Tremble, and they had 30 targets in this game. All right. As far as fumbles go, Baker Mayfield and Sean Tucker committed the 2 Tampa Bay fumbles, with 4 total recoveries by Mayfield, Lavonte David, Rashad Wisdom, and Benjamin Morrison. The Panthers had 3 fumbles. 1 fumble lost each by Rico Dowdle and Teteroa McMillan, and an additional fumble by Bryce Young, which was recovered by Rico Dowdle. All right, looking at the defense, we'll start with the Buccaneers. Lavonte David had 6 tackles. Tyke Smith had 5 tackles. Yaya Diaby had 4 tackles and a TFL. Vita Vea, 3 tackles and a TFL. Jacob Parrish and Antoine Winfield Jr. each had 3 tackles and a pass defensed. For the Panthers, Derek Brown had 13 tackles. Nick Scott, 9 tackles. Christian Roseboom with 8 tackles and 2 passes defensed. Mike Jackson, 7 tackles. Trayvon Morig, 6 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs, and a quarterback hit. Chris Barnes, 6 tackles plus half a sack, 1 TFL, and a quarterback hit as well. DJ Wanham, 5 tackles. Nick Scorton, 5 tackles, half a sack, and a QB hit. Ashawn Robinson, 5 tackles, and a quarterback hit. And Charles Smith-Wade with 4 tackles. Overall, the Panthers defense had 81 tackles, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 4 QB hits. The Buccaneers defense recorded just 38 tackles with no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense, and 1 quarterback hit. All right, each team recorded an interception. Jacob Parrish had the INT for the Bucs, while Christian Roseboom had the interception for Carolina for 20 yards. The Panthers had no kickoff returns. The Bucs had 3 of them, all from Sean Tucker for 57 yards, average of 19, long of 21. All right, no punt returns for Tampa Bay. You had 2 from the Panthers, 1 from Trevor Etienne for 3 yards, the other from Bryson Tremaine for no yards. All right, looking at the kickers, Chase McLaughlin for the Buccaneers went 3 for 4 on field goals, long of 48, and 1 for 1 on extra points. He would score 10 of Tampa Bay's 16 points. Ryan Fitzgerald, 0 for 1 on field goals. He would get his points on PATs. He was 2 for 2. All right, for Tampa, Riley Dixon with 3 punts at 130 yards, averaging 43.3. With all 3 inside the 20-yard line, his longest punt was 46 yards. And for the Panthers, Sam Martin also had 3 punts for 139 yards, 46.3 average, 1 touchback, and 1 inside the 20-yard line. His longest punt was 50 yards. All right, so those are the player numbers. Now to the team numbers. The Buccaneers ran 66 plays for 338 yards with 9 total drives, averaging 5.1 yards per play. The Panthers ran 49 plays for 285 with 10 total drives, and they averaged 5.8 yards per play. The Buccaneers had 21 first downs, 12 passing, 7 rushing, and 2 via the penalty. They went 8 for 15 on third down with no fourth downs. The Panthers had 16 first downs, 13 passing, 1 rushing, 2 penalties, or 2 first downs rather from penalties. They were 1 for 8 on third down and 2 for 2 on fourth down. Carolina had 266 passing yards, 24 completions on 35 attempts at 7.6 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, and no sacks taken. And Tampa Bay had 198 passing yards, 16 completions on 22 attempts, 8.3 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, and 2 sacks taken for 5 yards. The Buccaneers ran the ball 42 times for 140 yards at 3.3 yards per rush, while the Panthers ran 14 times for only 19 yards at 1.4 per rush. Carolina was 2 for 2 in the red zone, while Tampa Bay was 1 for 3. The Panthers had 5 penalties for 46 yards. They had 3 turnovers in the game, including 2 lost fumbles and an interception. They did not have a defensive or special teams touchdown. The Buccaneers had 6 penalties for 45 yards. Their 1 turnover was an interception, and they also had no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession is 37 minutes, 25 seconds for Tampa Bay, 22 minutes, 35 seconds for Carolina. The point spreads were written down on Wednesday. So, when I wrote these down, the Buccaneers were favored by 2.5, and the over-under was 44. I picked the Panthers to win and to cover, and I lost both those picks, so I start the week off 0-1 straight up, 0-1 ATS. But I did project that this game would go under 44 points. There were only 30. So on over-unders, I'm 1-0 for the week to start off. The other game from Saturday was probably the biggest game of the week. As the Seattle Seahawks go into Levi's Stadium and take down the San Francisco 49ers 13-3. So with the victory, the Seahawks captured the NFC West title and the number 1 seed in the NFC with a record of 14-3. The San Francisco 49ers, meanwhile, fall to 12-5 on the season, and we'll tell you if they stayed in the 5 spot or slipped to the 6 during the Cardinals-Rams game later. All right, let's start off with the quarterbacks, beginning with the Hawks. Sam Darnold was 20 of 26 for 198 yards, 181 net passing yards, 7.6 yards per pass with no touchdowns or interceptions. He took 2 sacks for 17 yards. He had a 35.9 QBR, passer rating of 97.9. For the Niners, Brock Purdy was 19 of 27 for 127 total yards, 120 net passing yards, 4.7 yards per pass with no touchdowns and 1 interception. He would take 3 sacks for 7 yards. He had a QBR of 22.8 passer rating of 64.9. Hey, what's up, Anna? How are you? All right, looking at the rushing. First for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, 16 carries, 97 yards, and an average of 6.1. My day is pretty good. Just a little tired. I was going to record this recap yesterday, but I had a lot to do. So, here we are now recording. All right, Zach Charbonnet, 17 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown at 4.4 per run. How's your day so far, Anna? Sam Darnold ran 6 times for 9 yards, averaging 1.5 yards per rush. So that's 39 total rushes for the Seahawks for 180 yards, 4.6 average, with 1 touchdown. On the 49ers side, Christian McCaffrey, 8 carries, 23 yards, 2.9 average. Brock Purdy, 2 for 21, 10.5 average. And Brian Robinson, 2 carries, 9 yards, 4.5 average. That's 12 total rushes for the 49ers for 53 yards. That's 4.4 yards per run. All right, looking at the receivers, we'll begin with the Seattle Seahawks. Jackson Smith and Jigba, or JSN, 6 receptions, 84 yards, 8 targets, 14 average. Kenneth Walker, 4 receptions, 36 yards, 4 targets, and an average of 9. Cooper Kupp, 2 for 29 on 3 targets. That's 14.5 per catch, which led the team. Zach Charbonnet, 3 receptions, 23 yards on 4 targets at an average of 7.7. Seahawks receivers had 20 receptions on 26 targets for 198 yards at 9.9 yards per reception with no touchdowns. That's awesome, and I can't complain either. And for the 49ers, Juwan Jennings, 4 receptions, 35 yards, 6 targets, 8.8 average. Christian McCaffrey, 6 for 34, 7 targets, 5.7 average. George Kittle, 5 for 29 on 7 targets at an average of 5.8. Demarcus Robinson, 3 receptions, 24 yards on 4 targets. He averaged 8 per catch. Kyle Juszczyk, 1 catch, 5 yards, 2 targets. Kendrick Bourne had 1 target but no catches. San Francisco receivers had 19 receptions for 127 yards at just 6.7 per reception with no touchdowns on 27 targets. There was 1 fumble in this game, and that was by the Seahawks by Sam Darnold, which would be recovered by Zach Charbonnet. All right, looking at the defense, we'll start with the Seahawks. Nick Emmanwori, 7 tackles, 1 TFL, and a quarterback hit. Ernest Jones with 5 tackles. Drake Thomas, 5 tackles, and 2 passes defensed. Devin Witherspoon and Byron Murphy each had 4 tackles. Ty Okada and Boye Mafe with 3 tackles. Mafe also had a pass defense. For the 49ers, Renardo Green and Jair Brown each led the team with 8 tackles apiece. Green also had a pass defense. Tatum Bethune, 7 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, a pass defense, and a quarterback hit. Upton Stout had 6 tackles. Malik Mustafa had 5 tackles. Sam Okoa Yenonu. I can't pronounce his name. It's spelled Okuyayinonu. Tough name to pronounce, but he had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs, and 2 quarterback hits. Meanwhile, Eric Kendricks and Jason Pinnock had 4 tackles each. All right, 49ers defense had 72 tackles, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 3 quarterback hits. The Seahawks, meanwhile, had 44 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 5 passes defense, and 8 quarterback hits. All right. The Seahawks recorded the lone interception in the game. It was by Drake Thomas. As far as kick returns, the Seahawks got one kick return for 34 yards from Rashid Shaheed. What up, Joey? How you doing, bro? And the 49ers had two kick returns, both from Brian Robinson for 36 yards, average of 18, long return of 28. All right, the Seahawks had a couple punt returns in this game from Rashid Shaheed for 30 yards, average of 15, long return of 19. Now to the kickers. Jason Myers for the Seahawks went 2 for 4 on field goals, long of 45, 1 for 1 on extra points. He would score 7 of the Seahawks' 13 points. Eddie Pinheiro 1 for 1 on field goals, long of 48, and no extra points. He would score all 3 of San Francisco's points. Nice. Days off are always fun. No days off for me. I'm working here. All right. On to the punters. Michael Dixon with just one punt for the Hawks for 36 yards, which went inside the 20-yard line, rather. And Thomas Morstead had 4 punts for 181 yards, average of 45.3, also one inside the 20-yard line. His long punt was 50 yards. All right, jumping over to the team numbers. The Seahawks would run 67 plays for 361 yards, 9 total drives, averaging 5.4 yards per play. The 49ers ran 42 plays for 173 on 8 total drives, averaging 4.1 per play. Seattle had 23 first downs, 11 passing, 10 rushing, and 2 from penalties. San Francisco had just 9 first downs, 8 rushing, or rather 8 passing and 1 rushing, with none from penalties. The Seahawks finished 6 for 13 on 3rd down and 0 for 1 on 4th down, while the 49ers went 2 for 9 on 3rd down and 0 for 2 on 4th down. All right, the Seahawks had 181 yards passing, 20 completions on 26 attempts, 6.5 yards per pass, no interceptions, 2 sacks taken for 17 yards. They ran 39 times for 180 yards, averaging 4.6 per rush. The 49ers had 120 yards passing, 19 completions on 27 attempts, 4 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, and 3 sacks taken for 7 yards. Okay. San Francisco ran just 12 times for 53 yards. That's a 4.4 average. Neither team were successful in the red zone. Seattle was 0 for 3. San Francisco 0 for 1. The Seahawks had 5 penalties for 25 yards with no turnovers. No defensive or special teams touchdowns. Their time of possession was 37 minutes and 48 seconds. 3 penalties, 31 yards for the 49ers. Their 1 turnover came from an interception. They had no defensive or special teams touchdowns, and their time of possession was 22 minutes and 12 seconds. Spread as of Wednesday was Seattle minus 1.5, and the over-under was 48. I picked the Niners to win and to cover as the home underdog, and I projected the game would go over 48 points. There were only 6 teams scored in this game. Lowest scoring game of the week. So my straight up and ATS records are both 0 and 2. Over under totals are now 1 and 1. Alright, so those are the Saturday games. Now we're going to venture into Sunday, where we had 14 matchups on the schedule. 6 games early, and we'll be starting off with the Battle of Ohio, the sequel. as the Cleveland Browns knock off the Cincinnati Bengals 20-18. The Browns will finish the season at 5-12, while the Bengals close at 6-11. All right, let's start off with the quarterbacks, beginning with Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders, 11 of 22 for 111 yards, 5 yards per pass, no touchdowns or interceptions. He would take 6 sacks for 29 yards. He had an 11.9 QBR and a passer rating of 64.8. Overall, the Browns had 82 net passing yards on the day, with the same passer rating of 64.8. Joe Burrow for the Bengals was 29 of 39 for 236, averaging 6.1 per pass, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks taken for 14. He would close with a 68 QBR, passer rating of 104.2. The Bengals overall had 222 net passing yards. Okay, rushing wise for the Browns, Dylan Sampson, 10 carries, 32 yards, 3.2 average. Shedeur Sanders, 3 for 26, 8.7 average. Raheem Sanders, 5 for 26 at 5.2 per run. Malachi Corley, 3 carries, 18 yards, 6 average. All told, the Browns ran 24 times for 118 yards at 4.9 yards per rush. Trevion Williams, Jerry Jeudy, and Isaiah Bond each had a rush attempt for 7, 5, and 4 yards respectively. For the Bengals, Chase Brown, 13 carries, 72 yards, 5.5 average. Samaje Perine, 8 carries, 42 yards, 5.3 average. Joe Burrow ran twice for 17 yards at an 8.5 average. The Bengals would run 25 times for 142 yards at 5.7 per rush, including 1 rush attempt for Keyshawn Williams for 9 yards and 1 for Joe Flacco for 2 yards. All right, on to the receivers. We'll start with the Browns. Cedric Tillman, 1 catch, 23 yards, 2 targets. Malachi Corley, 2 catches, 10 yards, or 20 yards rather, 2 targets, and a 10 average. Jerry Jeudy, 2 catches, 17 yards, 6 targets, 8.5 average. Trevion Williams and Isaiah Bond each had 1 catch for 13 yards on 2 targets. Dylan Sampson had 2 receptions, 12 yards on 3 targets at 6 per catch. Raheem Sanders, 1 catch, 7 yards on 1 target. With Brandon Bates, 1 catch, 6 yards on 1 target. Sal Cannella and Blake Whiteheart each had a target in this game. Neither had a catch. So not a lot of receptions for the Browns receivers. Just 11 for 111 yards, 10.1 yards per reception with no touchdowns on 21 targets. For the Bengals, Jamar Chase, 8 catches, 96 yards and a touchdown, 10 targets, and an average of 12. T. Higgins, 6 for 67 on 9 targets, 11.2 average and a touchdown. Chase Brown, 4 receptions, 18 yards, 6 targets, and a touchdown, 4.5 average. Drew Sample, 3 for 17 on 3 targets, 5.7 average. Mike Gesicki, 2 for 13 on 2 targets, 6.5 average. Andre Yosivach, 2 catches, 10 yards on 3 targets, 5 average. Samaje Perine had 3 receptions for 10 yards on 4 targets at 3.3 per catch, and Noah Fant had 1 catch on 1 target for 5 yards. So that's a total of 29 receptions by the Bengals for 236 yards, 8.1 yards per reception, with 3 touchdowns on 38 targets. All right, each team had a fumble. Cleveland had 1 from Shedeur Sanders. It was a lost fumble. It would be recovered by Cincinnati's Howard Cross III. Noah Fant also had a lost fumble for Cincinnati, which would be recovered by the Browns' Sam Webb. All right, defensively, Devin Bush had 14 tackles, 1 pass defense. He also scored a touchdown. We'll talk about that shortly. Grant Delpit had 10 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, and 2 quarterback hits. He had 8 tackles and 2 passes defense by Ronnie Hickman. 7 tackles by Mohamed Diabate. D'Angelo Ross had 6 tackles and 2 passes defense. Rayshawn Jenkins and Jerome Baker each had 5 tackles. Sam Webb had 4 tackles and a touchdown as well. Mason Graham with 4 tackles also. For the Bengals, B.J. Hill led the team with 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. Cam Sample, 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 TFL, and 2 quarterback hits. T.J. Slayton Jr., 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit. Miles Murphy and Barrett Carter, each with 5 tackles. Dax Hill, Jalen Davis, and Joe Giles Harris each had 4 tackles. All right, so overall, the Browns defense had 82 tackles with 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 7 passes defense, 5 quarterback hits, and they would score 2 defensive touchdowns. I'll have to look at the play-by-play of this game and see how Sam Webb scored his. The Bengals, meanwhile, have 59 tackles, 6 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 4 passes defense, and 9 quarterback hits. All right, the 1 interception was, of course, from Devin Bush, which he would return 97 yards for a touchdown. All right, as far as kick returns, Travion Williams had 3 for 73 yards for Cleveland, averaging 24.3 with a long return of 29. Crazy Cajuns in the house. What's poppin', my brother? And then for the Bengals, Keyshawn Williams had 4 kick returns for 99 yards, 24.8 average, long return of 31. Okay, as far as punt returns, the Browns had a couple from Gage LaVeridan for 6 yards. And the Bengals had 3 for 13 yards from Keyshawn Williams. Andre Smith, 2 for 2 on field goals, long of 49, 2 for 2 on extra points. He would score 8 of the 20 points for the Browns. Evan McPherson, no field goals made or attempted, and he was 0 for 2 on extra points. So a rough day for Evan McPherson. For the Browns, Corey Bojorquez with 5 punts, 225 yards, average of 45. 1 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 52. Ryan Rakow, 5 punts, 222 yards, 44.4 average, and 4 punts inside the 20-yard line. Long punt of 58. Oh, that's good, Crazy Cajun. On to the team numbers. All right. The Bengals actually outgained the Browns here. Cincinnati ran 66 plays for 364 with 10 total drives, 5.5 yards per play. The Browns ran 52 plays for 200 yards with 9 total drives and an average of 3.8 per play. The Bengals had 24 first downs, 16 passing and 8 rushing with none from penalties. The Browns had only 11 first downs, 4 passing, 6 rushing, and 1 from the penalty. On third down, the Browns were 5 for 14 and the Bengals were 5 for 11. Both teams 1 for 1 on fourth down. All right, the Bengals had 222 passing yards, 29 completions on 39 attempts, 5.4 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, with 2 sacks taken for 14 yards. And rushing wise, they ran the ball 25 times for 142 at 5.7 per tote. The Browns had 82 passing yards, 11 completions on 22 attempts, 2.9 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown. They would take 6 sacks in this game for 29 yards. And they ran 24 times for 118 yards, 4.9 yards per rush. The Bengals finished 3 for 4 in the red zone, while the Browns were 0 for 1. All right, as far as penalties, Cincinnati had 6 for 40 yards, 2 turnovers, including 1 lost fumble and an interception. They had no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Their time of possession was 35 minutes and 34 seconds. The Browns had 4 penalties for 40 yards. Their 1 turnover came from a lost fumble, and they would score 2 defensive and or special teams touchdowns. And their time of possession was 24 minutes and 26 seconds. All right. Spread as of Wednesday afternoon was Cincinnati minus 7.5 over under 45. I picked the Bengals to win and to cover the 7.5 points. Lost both picks. So now my straight up record is 0-3. My ATS record is 0-3. And let me just tell you right now, this was a rough year picking games in the NFL. Rough year. But I do improve to 2-1 on over-under totals, as I projected this game would finish under 45 points. There were 38 total between the Buckeye State rivals. Alright, how about a trip into the NFC East, as the New York Giants closed the season with back-to-back victories, capped with a 34-17 win over the Dallas Cowboys. New York with the win will improve to 4-13, while the Dallas Cowboys close the season 7-9-1. Starting off with the quarterbacks. All right, Jackson Dart did most of the lifting. He was 22 of 32 for 230 yards, 7.2 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did take 4 sacks for 11 yards. He had a 50.6 QBR and a passer rating of 110.2. Gunnar Olszewski attempted a pass for no yards, finished with a 0.2 QBR and a 39.6 passer rating. So all told, 22 of 33 for the New York Giants for 219 net passing yards, 7 yards per reception. The 2 touchdowns both coming from Jackson Dart with no interceptions. All 4 sacks taken by Dart for 11 yards. Collective passer rating of 106.9. For the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott started the game, went 7 of 11 for 70 yards, 6.4 yards per pass, with no touchdowns or interceptions. He would take no sacks. He finished with a 5.3 QBR and a passer rating of 81.6. Joe Milton played the entirety of the second half, went 7 of 13 for 73 yards, 5.6 yards per pass. No touchdowns, 1 interception, no sacks taken. He had a 55.6 QBR and a QB rating of 38.3. So Prescott and Milton combined to go 14 for 24 for 143 yards at 6 yards per pass, with no touchdowns, 1 interception, no sacks taken, and the collective passer rating of both quarterbacks was 58.1. Okay. Looking at the ground attack for the New York Giants first, Tyrone Tracy, 18 carries for 103, averaging 5.7. Jackson Dart, 5 carries, 32 yards, averaging 6.4. And Devin Singletary, 9 carries, 26 yards, and a touchdown at 2.9 per run. New York ran the ball 32 times for 161, averaging 5 yards per rush with 1 touchdown. For the Cowboys, Jaden Blue did most of the lifting in this one. 16 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown, average of 4. Joe Milton, 4 carries, 43 yards, and a 10.8 average with no touchdowns. Phil Mafah, 5 carries, 18 yards, and a touchdown, averaging 3.6. And Hunter Luepke, 2 carries, 12 yards, averaging 6. KaVontae Turpin ran once for 7 yards. Dak Prescott had 2 rushes for -1 yard. In total, the Dallas rushers ran the ball 30 times for 143 yards, 4.8 yards per run, with 2 touchdowns. On the receiving side of things, first for the Giants, Gunnar Olszewski. I mentioned earlier he attempted a pass in this game. He had 8 catches for 102 on 9 targets, averaging 12.8 per catch. Tyrone Tracy had 8 receptions for 56 and a touchdown, 9 targets as well, average of 7. Daniel Bellinger, 2 receptions, 38 yards and a touchdown on 2 targets, average of 19. And Darius Slayton, 4 receptions, 34 yards on 9 targets, 8.5 average. Chris Manhertz had 1 target. Isaiah Hodgins had 2 targets. Neither made a catch. Giants receivers had 22 receptions for 230, averaging 10.5 per catch with 2 touchdowns on 32 targets. All right. For the Dallas Cowboys, Ryan Flournoy, 5 catches, 68 yards, 7 targets, 13.6 average. Brevin Spanford, 2 for 30 yards on 3 targets, averaging 15, which led the team in yards per reception. Luke Schoonmaker, 1 catch, 12 yards, 1 target, 12 average, obviously. Phil Mafah, 2 receptions, 11 yards on 2 targets. That's a 5.5 average. You also had catches from George Pickens for 9 yards, Jake Ferguson for 5 yards, CeeDee Lamb and Hunter Luepke each for 4 yards. Pickens had 3 targets, Ferguson 2 targets, Lamb and Luepke 1 target each. Meanwhile, KaVontae Turpin, Jalen Tolbert, and Jonathan Mingo each had a target but no catches. Only 14 receptions for the Cowboys for 143 yards, 10.2 per reception, with no touchdowns on 23 targets. Okay, the Cowboys had just 1 fumble lost by Dak Prescott. Tyrone Tracy had a lost fumble for the Giants. Jackson Dart also coughed it up for New York, so that's 2 fumbles for the Giants and 1 for the Cowboys. Recoveries were by Jadeveon Clowney for the Cowboys, Jackson Dart, and Bobby Okereke for the Giants. Looking at the defense, we'll start with the New York Giants. Dane Belton led the team with 13 tackles. Rico Payton, 7 tackles and a pass defense. Bobby Okereke, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Raheem Lane had 4 tackles and a TFL. Darius Alexander had 4 tackles. Roy Robertson Harris, 3 tackles and a TFL. Drew Phillips, also 3 tackles and a TFL. Art Green, 3 tackles. Paulson Adebo, 3 tackles and a pass defense. And Demetrius Flanagan Fowles had 3 tackles. For the Cowboys, Shamar James, had 13 tackles, half of a sack, and a quarterback hit. Sam Williams, 8 tackles and a TFL. Logan Wilson, 7 tackles and a pass defense. Jadeveon Clowney, 6 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, a pass defense, and 3 quarterback hits. I think it's safe to give him the to give him Defensive Player of the Week honors. Reddy Stewart had 6 tackles. Kalen Carson had 6 tackles in a TFL. Donovan Wilson, Josh Butler, and Tre'Sweezy Bridges had 5 tackles apiece. Malik Hooker, 4 tackles, and Ozi Odighizuwa with 4 tackles and half a sack. All right. The Dallas defense recorded 84 tackles with 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, including 4 from Jadeveon Clowney, 2 passes defense, and 9 quarterback hits. And how about James Houston here with 5 of those QB hits? And the Giants recorded 60 tackles with no sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 4 passes defense, and only 2 quarterback hits. One from Brian Burns, the other from Abdul Carter. All right, no interceptions by the Cowboys defense. The Giants did have one from Bobby Okereke for 7 yards. As far as kick returns, Cavante Turpin was a busy man. 7 kick returns for 215 yards, 30.7 per return. His longest return was 84. Very impressive. Deonte Banks had the 2 kick returns for New York for 64 yards, 32 average, long kick return of 37. No punt returns for the Cowboys, but there was 2 for the Giants from Gunnar Olszewski for 31 yards, 15.5 average, long return of 21. On to the kickers. Ben Sauls was perfect. 4 for 4 on field goals, long of 45. And 2 for 2 on extra points. He would score 14 of the Giants' 34 points. As for Brandon Aubrey, it was 1 for 2 on field goals. Longest make was 22. And 2 for 2 on extra points. He would score 5 of the 17 Dallas points. Brian Anger for the Cowboys with 2 punts, 114 yards, 57 average. Long punt of 65. Jamie Gillen, 2 punts for the Giants for 84 yards, 42 average with 1 inside the 20-yard line. Long punt of 48. Now we'll look at the team numbers. All right. The Giants ran 69 plays for 380 yards, 10 total drives, 5.5 yards per play. The Cowboys ran 54 plays for 286, 11 total drives, 5.3 yards per play. The Giants had 25 first downs, 14 passing, 8 rushing, and 3 from penalties. They were 8 for 14 on third down with no fourth downs. The Cowboys had 18 first downs, 8 passing, 9 rushing, 1 from the penalties, and 2 for 8 on third down and 1 for 2 on fourth down. The Giants had 219 passing yards, 22 completions on 33 attempts, 5.9 yards per pass with no interceptions thrown, and 4 sacks taken for 11 yards. New York would run the ball 32 times for 161 yards at 5 yards per rush. Dallas had 143 passing yards, 14 completions on 24 attempts. Between Dak Prescott and Joe Milton, they would average 6 yards per pass with 1 interception thrown and no sacks taken. The Cowboys would run the ball 30 times for 143 yards, 4.8 per rush. The Cowboys finished 2 for 4 in the red zone. Giants were 2 for 5. Dallas had 9 penalties for 94 yards, 2 turnovers, 1 fumble lost, and 1 interception thrown. They did not score a defensive or special teams touchdown. Time of possession was 26 minutes and 53 seconds. The Giants had 7 penalties for 63 yards. Their 1 turnover was a lost fumble. They had no defensive or special teams touchdowns either. And their time of possession was 33 minutes and 7 seconds. All right, the spread in this one was Dallas minus 3.5. Over-under was 51. I took the Cowboys to win and to cover. And this is a rarity that I start a week 0-4 straight up and 0-4 against the spread. But that's exactly what happened here. And I did project that this game would go under 51 points. There were exactly 51 points scored. So this is going to go as a push. So on spreads, I'm 2-1-1. A quarter of the way through the schedule. Alright, so that was the Cowboys and the Giants. The next game takes us to the NFC North, as the playoff-bound Green Bay Packers pretty much no-showed in this game against the Minnesota Vikings, and as a result, they would lose 16-3. All right, so the Vikings will close the season, I think, with 5 or 6 straight wins. They're now 9-8 on the season, while the Packers will go to the playoffs with a record of 9-7-1. They are the 7 seed in the NFC. Okay, let's start with the quarterbacks, beginning with the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy started the game, went 14 for 23 for 182 yards, 7.9 yards per pass, no touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks taken. He had a 67.6 QBR and an 85.8 passer rating. Max Brosmer would come in for the rest of the game. He would go 7 of 8 for 57 yards at 7.1 per pass with no touchdowns or interceptions. He would take 2 sacks for 13 yards. Finished with a 35 QBR, passer rating of 96.4. All told, between McCarthy and Brosmer, the Vikings went 21 of 31 for 226 net passing yards, 7.7 yards per pass, with no touchdowns or interceptions. Both sacks for 13 yards were taken by Brosmer, and their collective passer rating was 90.7. As for the Packers, they're on their third string quarterback, Clayton Tune, and he had a rough one. 6 for 11 for 34 yards, just 3.1 yards per pass, with no touchdowns or interceptions. He would be sacked 4 times for 41 yards, finished with an 18.3 QBR, passer rating of 64 or 60.4. As far as net passing yards, the Packers had -7. That's no typo. -7 net passing yards. All right. Vikings rushing, beginning with Jordan Mason. 14 carries, 94 yards, 6.7 average. Ty Chandler, 10 carries, 23 yards, 2.3 average. Xavier Scott, 3 for 9 yards, 3 average. J.J. McCarthy ran twice for 7, 3.5 average. Justin Jefferson, 1 carry, 3 yards. C.J. Ham, 1 carry, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. So that's 31 rush attempts for the Vikings for 137 at 4.4 per rush with a touchdown. For the Packers, Chris Brooks, 13 carries, 61 yards, 4.7 average. Emmanuel Wilson, 18 carries, 44 yards, 2.4 average. And Clayton Tune, 4 carries, 23 yards, 5.8 average. The Packers ran the ball 35 times for 128, 3.7 per rush with no touchdowns. All right, on to the Vikings receivers. We'll start with Justin Jefferson, 8 receptions, 101 on 11 targets, 12.6 yards per catch. Jalen Naylor, 3 for 49 on 3 targets, 16.3 average. Josh Oliver, 2 for 29 on 2 targets, 14.5 average. Ben Sims, 1 for 18 on 4 targets. Ty Chandler, 3 receptions, 11 yards, 4 targets, 3.7 average. And you had 1 catch each for Ben Urosek for 9 yards, Xavier Smith for 8, Jordan Addison for 8 on 3 targets, and CJ Ham for 6. So that's a total of 21 receptions for 239 yards, 11.4 yards per reception with no touchdowns on 30 targets. And for the Packers, Jacoby Kenny James led the team with 2 receptions, 15 yards on 2 targets, 7.5 average. Matthew Golden had 1 catch on 3 targets for 8 yards. Josh Wiley, 1 catch, 1 target for 4 yards. Emmanuel Wilson, 1 catch, 1 target for 4 yards. Drake Dabney, 1 catch, 2 targets for 3 yards. Bo Milton had 1 target but no catches. So that's only 6 receptions the entire day for the Green Bay Packers for 34 yards. That's 5.7 yards per pass or 5.7 yards per catch with only 10 targets. All right, each team would commit a fumble in this game. Clayton Tune had 1. Max Brosmer for the Vikings would lose 1. On to the defenses. Eric Wilson for Minnesota had 9 tackles, 1 TFL, and a quarterback hit. Blake Cashman, 7 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, and a quarterback hit as well. Dallas Turner, 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs, and 2 quarterback hits. Jay Ward, 6 tackles. Andrew Van Ginkel, 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 passes defensed. Ivan Pace with 5 tackles. Theo Jackson, 4 tackles, a sack, a TFL, and a quarterback hit. And Byron Murphy had 4 tackles and a TFL. On the Packers side, Jamon Johnson had 10 tackles and a pass defense. Baron Sorrell, 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. Jalen Simpson, 8 tackles. Jonathan Baldwin, 7 tackles. Isaiah McDuffie with 5 tackles. Gaetan Oladapo, 5 tackles and a pass defense. Tyron Hopper had 5 tackles, and Shamar Bartholomew had 4 tackles and a TFL. All right. Overall, the Packers had 69 tackles with 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense, and 7 quarterback hits. The Vikings had 63 tackles, 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 5 quarterback hits. There were no interceptions by either defense. As far as kick returns, 3 for 80 yards for the Packers, 26.7 average. 2 from Jacoby Kenny James for 47 yards. The other from Emmanuel Wilson for 33. The Vikings had the 1 kick return from Ty Felton for 29 yards. Both punt returns came from the Vikings by Jashawn Jones for 5 yards. All right, on to the kickers. Brandon McManus for Green Bay was 1 for 1 on field goals, no extra points, just the 3 points scored for the team. Will Reichert for the Vikings, 3 for 3 on field goals, long of 43, 1 for 1 on extra points. He would score 10 of Minnesota's 16. Daniel Whelan for the Packers, 8 punts, 431 yards, 53.9 average, 1 touchback, and how about 5 inside the 20-yard line? Long punt of 68. Ryan Wright, 4 punts, 196 yards. That's 49 per punt. 2 inside the 20-yard line, and his longest punt would be 55 yards. All right, moving on to the team numbers. The Vikings ran 64 plays for 363, 9 total drives, 5.7 yards per play. The Packers ran 50 total plays for only 121 yards. on 10 total drives. That's 2.4 yards per play. The Vikings had 23 first downs, 14 passing, 8 rushing, 1 via the penalty, 2 for 10 on third down, and 1 for 1 on fourth down. And the Packers had 12 first downs, 1 passing, 10 rushing, 1 from penalties, 3 for 12 on third down with no fourth downs. All right, looking at the Vikings, they had 226 passing yards, 21 completions on 31 attempts, 6.8 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown, 2 sacks taken for 13. They ran the ball 31 times for 137 yards at 4.4 per rush, and they were 1 for 4 in the red zone. The Packers had -7 passing yards, 6 completions on 11 attempts. That's an average of -0.5 yards per pass, with no interceptions thrown and 4 sacks taken for 41 yards. They ran the ball 35 times for 128 yards, 3.7 per run, and they were 0 for 1 in the red zone. Green Bay had 4 penalties for 47 yards with no turnovers. They didn't score a defensive or special teams touchdown. Time of possession, 26 minutes, 30 seconds. Minnesota had 2 penalties for 20 yards. Their 1 turnover was a lost fumble, with no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession, 33 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, the spread as of last Wednesday was Minnesota -7.5, and the over-under was 36. I picked the Vikings to win and to cover. I get my first straight-up win and my first ATS win of the week, 1-4 both ways. But I did miss the total in this one. I projected the game to go over 36 points. There was only 19. So now on totals, I'm 2-1. All right. So there is the Packers and the Vikings. Moving on to the AFC South. We had a shootout down at NRG Stadium in Houston as the Texans outlasted the Indianapolis Colts 38-30. The Texans will close the season on a 9-game winning streak and move their record to 12-5. Meanwhile, the Colts will finish the season with 7 straight losses, all after their off week, as they finish 8-9 on the year. But is this win enough for Houston to claim the AFC South? We'll have that answer during the Titans-Jaguars game, so stay tuned. All right, starting off with the quarterbacks, we'll begin with the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud was 14 of 23 for 169, 7.3 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks taken, 59.4 QBR, passer rating of 97.9. Davis Mills would come in garbage time, went 3 for 9 for 36 yards at 4 yards per pass. No touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks taken. 9.8 QBR, 46.5 passer rating. So in total, the Texans quarterbacks were 17 of 32 for 205 yards, 6.4 yards per pass with 1 touchdown from Stroud and no interceptions or sacks taken. Collective passer rating is 83.5. For the Colts, Riley Leonard started in place of the 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, and he did pretty well. 21 of 34, 270 yards, 7.9 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack taken for 8 yards. He had an 83.8 QBR, which is really good, and a passer rating of 94. Rigoberto Sanchez, their punter, completed a pass for 16 yards and had a 118.8 QB rating. So for Indianapolis QBs, they went 22 of 35 for 278 net passing yards, 8.2 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, only 1 sack taken for 8 yards, collective passer rating of 95.6. All right, rushing wise for the Texans, British Brooks, 13 carries, 63 yards, 4.8 average. Woody Marks, 10 carries, 48 yards, also a 4.8 average. Davis Mills ran once for 12. CJ Stroud ran twice for 5 and a touchdown, 2.5 average. Dare Ogunbowale, 1 carry, 3 yards. Jawar Jordan, 5 carries, only 3 yards. He averaged less than a yard per run. So that's 32 total rushes for the Texans for 134 yards, 4.2 yards per run with a touchdown. And for the Colts, DJ Giddens, 8 carries, 30 yards, 3.8 average. Jonathan Taylor, 14 carries, 26 yards, only a 1.9 average. He was pretty much a non-factor. Riley Leonard ran 3 times for 21 yards and a touchdown, averaging 7. 1 rush for Tyler Goodson for 3 yards. 1 rush for Amir Abdullah for 1. And 1 rush for Josh Downs for -5. Indianapolis would run the ball 28 times for 76 yards and only 2.7 per rush with 1 touchdown. On to the Texans receivers. Xavier Hutchinson led the charge for Houston. 5 receptions, 84 yards, 9 targets, 16.8 average. Dalton Schultz, 4 for 73 on 4 targets, 18.3 average. Jaden Higgins, 2 receptions, 23 yards, and a touchdown on 5 targets, 11.5 average. Okay, Jalen Noel, 1 catch, 1 target for 13 yards. Cade Stover, 1 catch, 2 targets for 9. Dare Ogunbowale, 1 carry or 1 catch, 2 targets for 6 yards. Woody Marks had 2 receptions for no yards on 3 targets. Christian Kirk had a reception on 2 targets for -3. So Texans receivers had a total of 17 receptions for 205. That's 12.1 yards per reception with 1 touchdown on 28 targets. For the Indianapolis Colts, Alec Pierce, 4 receptions, 132, 2 touchdowns, 7 targets, averaging 33 per catch. He had a very good game. Josh Downs, 4 for 61 on 4 targets, 15.3 average. Tyler Warren caps off his rookie campaign with 5 catches, 26 yards on 8 targets at 5.2 per catch. Amir Abdullah, 2 for 24 on 2 targets, 12 average. Mo Ali Cox, 3 for 22 yards on 4 targets, 7.3 average. Jonathan Taylor, 2 for 13 on 2 targets, 6.5 average. Michael Pittman, 2 receptions, 11 yards, 4 targets, 5.5 average. Ashton Doolin had 2 targets, no catches. Riley Leonard technically had no catches, but he had -3 receiving yards. I don't know how that's possible. But anyway, the Colts receivers had 22 receptions for 286. That's 13 yards per catch with 2 touchdowns on 33 targets. All right. Both fumbles committed were by the Colts by Riley Leonard, and he would lose both those fumbles. Recoveries by Tommy Togiel and Henry To'oTo'o for the Texans. All right. As for the Houston defense, you had 6 tackles and a TFL for Will Anderson, 6 tackles each for Damone Clark and EJ Speed, of course, playing his former team. Miles Bryant, 5 tackles. Kevon Wallace, 4 tackles and a TFL. Tommy Togiel, 4 tackles, a TFL, a pass defense, and he scored a touchdown. Elijah Huzzle, 4 tackles and a TFL. Derek Barnett with 4 tackles, 1 TFL, and 2 quarterback hits. And Tremon Smith, 4 tackles. For the Colts, Zaire Franklin had a game-high 12 tackles. He also had 2 tackles for loss. Nick Cross and Adatomwa Adabawori had 6 tackles, and the latter had a tackle for loss. 5 tackles each from Rodney Thomas II, Samson Ebukam, Jermaine Pratt, and Cam Bynum. And Jalen Jones had 4 tackles and a pass defense. All right. The Colts defense had 73 tackles, no sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 2 quarterback hits. Meanwhile, the Texans had 71 tackles, 1 sack, 6 tackles for loss, 6 passes defense, 3 quarterback hits, and they did score a touchdown defensively. All right, no interceptions for the Colts defense. There was one by the Texans by Elijah Huzzle. All right, as for kick returns, 4 total kick returns for the Colts for 112 yards, 28 average. Ashland Doolin had a couple for 59. Amir Abdullah had the other 2 for 53, and both had a long return of 30 yards. Jalen Noel had all 6 kickoff returns for the Texans for 175. That's a 29.2 average. Long return of 43. All right, 1 punt return on each side. For the Colts, it was Josh Downs for 13 yards. For the Texans, it was Jalen Noel for 6. Blake Grupe was 3 for 3 field goals, long of 50, and 3 for 3 on extra points. He would score 12 of Indy's 30 points. Kaimi Fairbairn was 6 for 6 on field goals, long of 51, and 2 for 2 on PATs. He would score more than half of the Texans' 38, putting up 20. As for the punters, the aforementioned Rigoberto Sanchez for Indy had 2 punts, 90 yards, 45 average, long punt of 49. And Houston's Tommy Townsend had 3 punts, 121, 40.3 average, 2 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 45 yards. As we jump over to the team numbers from this game. All right. So the Colts ran 64 plays for 354, 11 total drives, 5.5 yards per play. The Texans ran 64 plays as well for 339, 11 total drives, 5.3 yards per play. Houston had 22 first downs, 9 passing, 10 rushing, 3 from penalties. Indy 19 first downs, 11 passing, 7 rushing, and 1 from penalties. The Colts finished 8 for 15 on 3rd down, 1 for 1 on 4th down. The Texans were 4 for 13 on 3rd down with no 4th downs. All right. The Indianapolis Colts finished with 278 passing yards, 22 completions on 35 attempts, 7.7 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, and 1 sack taken for 8 yards. They would run 28 times for 76 yards, 2.7 for rush, and they finished 2 for 4 in the red zone. The Texans had 205 passing yards, 17 completions on 32 attempts, 6.4 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown, and no sacks taken. They ran 32 times for 134 at 4.2 per run, and they were 2 for 3 in the red zone. Okay, the Colts had 7 penalties for 81 yards. They had 3 turnovers, 2 lost fumbles, and an interception. They did not score a defensive or special teams touchdown. Possession was 31 minutes, 45 seconds. And for the Texans, they had 7 penalties for 77 yards with no turnovers. They did have a touchdown on defense or special teams, and their time of possession was 28 minutes and 15 seconds. All right. Spread as of last Wednesday was Houston -10. Over-under was 39. I took Houston to win and Indianapolis to cover. Got both of those picks. So now I'm 2-4 straight up and ATS. And I projected the game to go over 39 points. They almost doubled the point total here at 68. This was the highest scoring game in week 18. So now on totals, I'm 3-2-1. Okay. We have made it to the Saints and the Falcons. As we continue on here. There we go. Saints and Falcons. Atlanta wins the game by a final of 19-17. And in the process, the Carolina Panthers will clinch the NFC South Championship. And the Falcons win officially eliminates the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from postseason contention, as the Falcons force a three-way tie atop the division at 8-9 to close out the season. The Saints, meanwhile, will finish 6-11. Start off with the quarterbacks. We'll begin with Kirk Cousins. 18 of 32 for 180 yards, 5.6 per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks taken for 21, 26.2 QBR, 69.8 passer rating. They would have 159 net passing yards. And for the Saints, Tyler Shuck was 23 of 35 for 259, 7.4 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks taken for 27. He had a 61 QBR, 85.3 passer rating. The Saints would finish with 232 net passing yards. All right, looking at the Falcons' ground attack, not much done by Bijan Robinson or Tyler Algier. Bijan had 15 carries, 33 yards, only a 2.2 average. Algier had 7 carries for 16 yards and a 2.3 average. Kirk Cousins ran the ball 3 times for no yards. So that's 25 total rushes for the Falcons for 49 yards, 2 yards per run with no touchdowns. For the Saints, Audric Estime, 21 carries, 63 yards. That's only an average of 3. Tyler Shuck, 3 for 34 and a touchdown, averaging 11.3. Evan Hull, 2 for 11, averaging 5.5. So that's 26 total rushes for the Saints for 108, 4.2 average, and a touchdown. On to the Falcons receivers. Drake London, 4 receptions, 78 yards, touchdown on 8 targets, 19.5 average. Kyle Pitts Sr., 6 for 58, 9 targets, 9.7 average. Darnell Mooney, 3 for 20 yards on 7 targets, 6.7 average. David Sills, 1 catch, 1 target for 11. Bijan Robinson, 3 receptions, 10 yards, 3 targets, only a 3.3 average. Tyler Algier had 1 catch on 2 targets for 3 yards. Falcons receivers had a total of 18 receptions for 180 yards. That's an even 10 yards per catch with 1 touchdown on 30 targets. On to the Saints receivers now. Juwan Johnson, 3 for 61 on 5 targets, 20.3 average. Dante Pettis, 5 for 60 yards on 5 targets. That's an average of 12. Audric Estime, 5 catches, 43 yards on 5 targets, 8.6 average. Kevin Austin Jr., 4 for 37 on 9 targets, 9.3 average. Taysom Hill, 3 for 32 on 3 targets. That's an average of 10.7. Ronnie Bell, 2 for 23 and a touchdown on 4 targets, 11.5 average. And Samori Toure, 1 catch, 3 yards on 3 targets. Saints receivers had a total of 23 receptions for 259, averaging 11.3 per catch, with 1 touchdown on 34 targets. Okay. Juwan Johnson did lose a fumble in this game for the Saints. It would be recovered by Xavier Watts of the Falcons. All right, looking at this Atlanta defense first. D offered 9 tackles, 1 TFL, 2 passes defense. Divine Diablo, 8 tackles and a pass defense. Xavier Watts, 7 tackles and a pass defense. CJ Henderson, 7 tackles and 2 passes defense. Caden Ellis, 6 tackles and a pass defense. David Onyemata with 6 tackles. Kentavious Street, 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. AJ Terrell Jr., 4 tackles. Laquel London, had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. And James Pierce Jr. had 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and a couple quarterback hits. Jesse Bates III with 3 tackles, and J.D. Bertrand with 3 tackles and a pass defense. For the Saints, Carl Granderson with 10 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 1 pass defense, and 3 quarterback hits. Chase Young, 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 TFLs, 1 pass defense, and 2 quarterback hits. Demario Davis, 6 tackles. Alante Taylor, 4 tackles and a TFL. Cam Jordan, 4 tackles, 1 sack, 2 TFLs, and 2 QB hits. Quincy Riley, 4 tackles and 2 passes defense. And Jonah Williams had 4 tackles. Also, Kool-Aid McKinstry, 3 tackles and 4 passes defense. That's right, 4. David Stutzman, 3 tackles. John Ridgway III, also with 3 tackles. All right. 79 tackles for the Falcons defense with 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 8 passes defense, and 4 quarterback hits. 67 tackles for the Saints defense with 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 8 passes defense, and 9 quarterback hits. Each defense recorded an interception. For New Orleans, it was Carl Granderson, and for Atlanta, D. Alford, which he would return for 59 yards. All right, 3 kick returns on both sides. Evan Hall had all 3 for the Saints for 78 yards, average of 26, long return of 28. The Falcons had 2 kick returns for 42 yards from Devin Tompkins, 21 average, long return of 25. Dylan Drummond had 1 kick return for 31 yards. So that's a total of 3 kick returns for 73, 24.3 average. All right. And each team had 3 punt returns as well. For the Saints, Dante Pettis, 2 punt returns for 17, 8.5 average. Nyheim Hines, 1 punt return for 11. So that's a total of 3 for 28 at a 9.3 clip. Devin Tompkins had all 3 punt returns for the Falcons for 26 yards and an 8.7 average. Charlie Smith, 1 for 2 on field goals, long of 29, 2 for 2 on extra points, just 5 points scored. Zane Gonzalez, 4 for 4 on field goals, long of 51, 1 for 1 on extra points. He would score 13 of the 19 Falcons points. Kai Kroger, 4 punts, 203 yards, average of 50.8. 1 punt inside the 20-yard line, but officially they said the team had 5 punt returns for 203 yards, which would average 40.6. So I don't know where that other punt return is. Bradley Pinion for the Falcons had 4 punt returns for 229, 57.3 average. 2 punts inside the 20-yard line. His long punt was impressive at 69 yards. Moving over to the team numbers now. All right. New Orleans ran 65 plays for 340, 11 total drives, 5.2 yards per play. Atlanta, 61 plays, 208 yards, 12 total drives, 3.4 yards per play. Saints had 16 first downs, 10 passing, 5 rushing, 1 via the penalty. Atlanta 14 first downs, 11 passing, 2 rushing, and 1 from the penalties. New Orleans was 5 of 16 on third down, 3 for 3 on fourth down, while Atlanta was 4 for 14 on third down and 1 for 1 on fourth down. Okay, the Saints had 232 yards passing, 23 completions on 35 attempts, 5.9 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 4 sacks taken for 27 yards. They ran 26 times for 108 yards at 4.2 per rush. They were 2 for 3 in the red zone. The Falcons had 159 passing yards, 18 completions on 32 attempts, 4.4 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 4 sacks taken for 21 yards. And they ran 25 times for 49 yards, which is 2 yards per rush. Atlanta would finish 1 for 3 in the red zone. 6 penalties, 40 yards for the Saints. They had 2 turnovers, 1 lost fumble, and 1 interception. No defense or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession was 31 minutes and 19 seconds. 5 penalties, 42 yards for the Falcons. 1 turnover, that came from an interception. And they had no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession is 28 minutes and 41 seconds. All right, spread as of last Wednesday was Atlanta -3, over under 44.5. I picked the Falcons to win and cover. But since the Falcons only won by 2 points, New Orleans will cover this game. So my straight up record goes to 3-4. ATS record dips to 2-5. And on the total, I projected over 44.5 points. There were only 36. So now 3-3-1 on totals as we are approaching the midway point of this review. All right. And we are headed back to the AFC South. And now we are headed back to the AFC South, where the Jacksonville Jaguars stomped the Tennessee Titans 41-7. At 13-4, the Jaguars will clinch the AFC South title. It's their first division championship since 2017. While the Titans will close the season with a record of 3-14. Which would tie for the worst in the NFL. All right, we'll begin with the quarterback, starting off with Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence started the game, went 22 of 30 for 255, 8.5 yards per pass, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 2 sacks taken for 16 yards. He had an 82.4 QBR and a 131.9 passer rating. Nick Mullins completed a couple passes for 16 yards, 8 yards per pass, no touchdowns or interceptions, no sacks taken either. He had a 99.3 QBR and a 100 passer rating. So between Lawrence and Mullins, they went 24 for 32 for 255 net passing yards, 8.5 per reception with 8.5 yards per pass with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Both sacks were taken by Trevor Lawrence for 16 yards, and they had a collective passer rating of 131.1. And the Titans started the game with Cam Ward, 3 for 3 for 52 yards. That's 17.3 per pass. No touchdowns or interceptions. Didn't take any sacks. He had a 94.2 QBR and a 118.8 passer rating. Unfortunately, he would get injured in this game and would not return. So Brandon Allen went the rest of the way, and he wasn't much better. 17 of 30 for 72 yards, 2.4 per pass. No touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack taken for 7 yards. He had a 10.8 QBR, passer rating of 47.9. So Titans passers went 20 for 33 for 117 net passing yards at 3.8 per pass, with no touchdowns and one interception. The one sack taken by Brandon Allen for 7 yards. Collected passer rating was 55.6. Okay, rushing wise for the Jaguars, Travis Etienne, 14 carries, 32 yards, 2.3 average. Bashul Tutin, 5 carries, 23 yards, and a touchdown, 4.6 average. Trevor Lawrence, 2 for 11 on an average of 5.5. Sorry. Let me get this off of there. Come on, work with me. There you go. Nick Mullins, 3 carries, minus 2 yards. So that's 24 total rush attempts for Jacksonville for 64 yards. 2.7 per rush with 1 touchdown. And for the Titans, Tony Pollard, 14 carries, 48 yards, 3.4 average. Tyjae Spears, 3 for 18, 6 average. Cam Ward, before getting injured, 2 carries, 11 yards, and a touchdown, 5.5 average. That's 19 total rushes for the Titans for 77, average of 4.1, and the 1 touchdown from Cam Ward. On to the Jags receivers. Parker Washington, 5 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets, 17.4 average. Brenton Strange, 6 for 52 and a touchdown on 6 targets, 8.7 average. Brian Thomas, 3 for 49, 5 targets, 16.3 average. Jacoby Myers, 5 for 44 on 6 targets, that's an 8.8 average. All right. All told, the Jaguars had 24 receptions for 271, 11.3 yards per catch, with 3 touchdowns, the third coming from Quentin Morris. And Jaguars receivers had 31 targets. All right, for the Titans, Alec Eomanor, 3 receptions, 50 yards, 10 targets, 16.7 average. Chimere DK, 3 for 27 on 4 targets, 9 average. Tony Pollard, 3 for 17 on 3 targets and a 5.7 average. Tyjae Spears, 7 catches, 7 targets, only 9 yards. That's a 1.3 average. Titans receivers had a total of 20 receptions on 33 targets for 124 yards. Only 6.2 yards per catch with no touchdowns. All right, 1 fumble by the Jaguars. It was by Parker Washington. Defensively, Foye Oluokun led Jacksonville's D with 8 tackles and a pass defense. Devin Lloyd, 5 tackles, 1 TFL. Dwayne Smoot, 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. Eric Murray, 4 tackles, and further down you have Antonio Johnson with 3 tackles of pass defense, and he scored a defensive touchdown as well. For the Titans, Cedric Gray had 8 tackles to lead the Tennessee defense. Sanasi Kane, 7 tackles. Michael Robinson, 7 tackles, 1 TFL, and 2 passes defense. Jarek Reed II, 5 tackles. Truman Jones, 5 tackles, a TFL, and a pass defense. James Williams Sr., 5 tackles and a TFL. Cody Barton, 4 tackles. Same with Eric Hallett. All right, so the Titans defense would record 64 tackles with 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 2 quarterback hits. While the Jaguars had 55 tackles, 1 sack, 5 tackles for loss, 4 passes defense, 5 quarterback hits, and 1 defensive touchdown from Antonio Johnson. It was a pick 6 for 58 yards. All right, 1 kick return for the Titans from Chimere DK for 20 yards. 2 kick returns for the Jaguars from DJ Dallas for 52 yards, average of 26, long return of 28. As for punt returns, you had 1 from Chimere DK for 9 yards for Tennessee, and both from Parker Washington for Jacksonville for only 6 yards. Joey Slye for Tennessee was 0 for 1 on field goals and 1 for 1 on extra point, hence the only point he would score in this game. Cam Little, however, 2 for 2 on field goals, long of 67, which is the second longest in NFL history. Of course, the record is also Cam Little. He kicked a 68-yarder earlier this year. He was also 5 for 5 on field goals, so he would score 11, or 5 for 5 on extra points, rather. He would score 11 in this game. All right, Johnny Hekker, 5 punts, 243 yards, 48.6 average, 2 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 57 for the Titans. And Logan Cook with 3 punts, 138 yards, 46 average, 1 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 60 for the Jaguars. As we move to team numbers, the Jaguars ran 58 plays for 319, 10 total drives, 5.5 yards per play. Tennessee, 53 total plays for 194, 10 total drives, 3.7 yards per play. The Jaguars had 24 first downs, 17 passing, 4 rushing, and 3 first downs from penalties. And Tennessee had 10 first downs, 5 passing, 5 rushing, none from penalties. Jaguars were 4 for 9 on third down with no fourth downs, while the Titans were 4 for 14 on third down and 1 for 3 on fourth down. Jacksonville had 255 passing yards, 24 completions on 32 attempts, 7.5 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown, 2 sacks taken for 16, 24 rushes for 64 yards at only 2.7 per rush, and they were a perfect 3 for 3 in the red zone. Tennessee, meanwhile, had 117 passing yards, 20 completions on 33 attempts, 3.4 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 1 sack taken for 7. They had 19 rushes for 77 yards, 4.1 per rush, and they were 1 for 1 in the red zone. The Titans had 6 penalties for 67 yards. Their lone turnover was an interception. They had no defense or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession was 26 minutes and 57 seconds. And for the Titans, or the Jaguars rather, they had 3 penalties for 20 yards. With no turnovers, they did score a touchdown on defense or on special teams. Their time of possession was 33 minutes and 3 seconds. All right, the spread was Jacksonville minus 12.5 as of last Wednesday. Over under 47.5. I projected under 47.5 points in this game, and I just missed this by that half a point as the two teams combined for 48. That's a heartbreaker. So my straight up record is 4-4. I managed to even that out. My ATS record is in the dumps though at 2-6. And on over under totals, I'm also below 500 with a record of 3-4-1. As we're halfway through. If you're joining me late, you're watching the week that was, as we're taking a look at the player and team statistical numbers from the final week of the 2025 NFL regular season. Also coming up, we'll have the week 18, well, not the week 18, but the final power rankings of 2025. We'll also have the last standings of the season and the wild card schedule all coming up, so please stay tuned. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, ring the bell, and get notified every time I go live. And let's move into part 2 of the week that was for week number 18. And we have now gotten to the Sunday late afternoon games. There are 7 of those in total. And we're going to start off with a blowout in the NFC West as the Los Angeles Rams beat down the Arizona Cardinals 37-20. With the victory, LA goes to 12-5 while Arizona will close the season on a 9-game losing streak, and their record is 3-14. With LA's victory and San Francisco's loss on Saturday, the Rams move up to the number 5 spot in the NFC, while the Niners fell to the 6th seed. All right, on to the quarterbacks. We'll start with the Rams. Matthew Stafford was 25 of 40 for 259 total yards and 252 net passing yards, 6.5 yards per pass, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He had 1 sack. He took 1 sack for 7 yards at an 85.6 QBR and a passer rating of 114.5. As for the Cardinals, Jacoby Brissett was 22 of 31 for 243, 7.8 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He would take 6 sacks for 33 yards, 48.3 QBR, 101.9 QB rating. Matt Hawk, I think he's the kicker for, he's the punter for the Cardinals. He completed a pass for 28 yards, finished with a 118.8 QB rating. Okay, so combined, the Arizona Cardinals were 23 for 32 for 238 net passing yards, 8.5 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, all from Brissett, 6 sacks taken from 33, all from Brissett. They had a collective QB rating of 105.1. All right, rushing numbers for the Rams. First, Kyren Williams, 12 carries, 60 yards, 5 average. Blake Corum, 13 for 59 and a 4.5 average. Puka Nacua ran twice for 24, averaging 12 per run. Matthew Stafford, 1 rush, 3 yards. Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 rushes, -3 yards. That's a total of 31 rushing yards for the Rams for 143 yards, 4.6 per run with no touchdowns. For the Cardinals, Amari DiMarcado, 2 carries, 29 yards, 14.5 average. Jacoby Brissett would run 3 times for 19 yards at a 6.3 clip. Michael Carter, 7 carries, 18 yards, 2.6 average. Corey Kiner, 3 carries, 13 yards, 4.3 average. That's a total of 15 rushes for the Cardinals for 79 yards, 5.3 average, and no touchdowns. On to the Rams receivers, beginning with Tyler Higbee. 5 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown, 6 targets, 18.2 average. Puka Nacua, 10 for 76 and a touchdown on 11 targets, 7.6 average. Colby Parkinson, 4 catches, 36 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 targets, averaging 9. Kyren Williams, 3 for 21 on 5 targets, average of 7. Total of 25 receptions for the Rams for 259 yards, 10.4 yards per reception, with 4 touchdowns on 37 targets. For the Cardinals, Michael Wilson, 5 receptions, 99 yards and a touchdown, 8 targets, 19.8 average. Trey McBride, 7 for 65 on 8 targets, 9.3 average. Amari DiMarcado, 1 catch, 1 target, 28 yards. Elijah Higgins, 3 for 28 on 3 targets, 9.3 average. Michael Carter, 3 for 21 on 3 targets, 7 average. Both Josiah DeGuara and Corey Kiner had 2 receptions for 15 yards and a 7.5 average. DeGuara targeted 2 times, had a touchdown, and Corey Kiner had 3 targets. That's a total of 23 receptions for the Cardinals for 271. That's an average of 11.8 per catch with 2 touchdowns on 28 targets. Okay. There was a lost fumble by the Cardinals for Jacoby Brissett. It would be recovered by the Rams' Kobe Turner. Speaking of defense, Jalen McCullough led the Rams with 7 tackles. Cameron Kitchens had 6. Omar Speights 5. Cam Curl 5 tackles and a pass defense. Desjuan Johnson 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and 4 quarterback hits. Jarrett Burst 3 tackles, a sack and a TFL plus 2 quarterback hits. Nate Landman 3 tackles. Roger McCreary also with 3 tackles. On the Cardinals side, Jalen Thompson, 10 tackles. Buda Baker, 9 tackles, 2 TFLs. Cody Simon, 8 tackles. Denzel Burke, 6 tackles. Akeem Davis Gaither, 5 tackles. Darius Robinson, 4 tackles, a TFL, and a quarterback hit. All right, so the Cardinals had 74 tackles with 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss, 3 passes defensed, and 4 QB hits. The Rams, 52 tackles with 6 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 3 passes defensed, and 12 quarterback hits. All right, 1 interception by the Rams defenses from Ahkello Witherspoon. As for kick returns, the Cardinals had 3 for 49 yards from Steven Sims. That's an average of 16.3, long return of 21. 5 total kick returns for the Rams for 134 to 26.8 average. 4 by Ronnie Rivers for 107, and 1 by Xavier Smith for 27. All right, 2 punt returns for the Cardinals, both from Steven Sims for 27 yards, 13.5 average, long return of 18. And 1 punt return for the Rams from Xavier Smith for 9 yards. Chad Ryland for the Cardinals was 2 for 2 on field goals, long of 56, 2 for 2 on PATs. He had 8 points in this game. Harrison Mevis, 3 for 3 on field goals for the Rams, long of 42, 4 for 4 on PATs. He would score 13 points. Matt Hawk, 2 punts, 109 yards, 54.5 average, 1 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 57. 2 punts for Ethan Evans of the Rams for 117. That's an average of 58.5. His longest punt was 64, as we now move to the team numbers in this one. All right, the Rams ran 72 plays for 395, 10 total drives, 5.5 yards per play. Cardinals 53 plays for 317, 9 total drives, 6 yards per play. LA had 25 first downs, 16 passing, 9 rushing, 0 from penalties. They went 9 of 16 on 3rd down and 1 for 1 on 4th down. The Cardinals had 17 first downs, 13 passing, 4 rushing, 0 via the penalty, 4 of 11 on 3rd down, and 1 for 2 on 4th down. LA had 252 passing yards, 25 completions on 40 attempts, 6.1 yards per play, or 6.1 yards per pass, no interceptions, and 1 sack taken for 7 yards. They would run the ball 31 times for 143 at 4.6 per rush, and they were 2 for 4 in the red zone. Meanwhile, the Cardinals had 238 passing yards, 23 completions on 32 attempts, 6.3 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, and 6 sacks taken for 33 yards. They ran the ball 15 times for 79 yards, but averaged 5.3 per run, and Arizona was 1 for 3 in the red zone. All right. The Cardinals had 6 penalties for 45 yards. They had 2 turnovers, 1 lost fumble, and 1 interception. No defense or special teams touchdowns. Their time of possession was 27 minutes and 49 seconds. For the Rams, they had 4 penalties for 20 yards with no turnovers. They also didn't score a touchdown on defense or special teams. Their time of possession was 32 minutes and 11 seconds. The spread as of Wednesday afternoon last week was LA minus 7 and the over-under was 46. I picked LA to win and to cover, and I took the over 46. So I ended up getting all 3 picks in this game. Straight up record improves to 5-4. ATS is now 3-6. And my totals record is even up at 4 up, 4 down, and 1 push. All right. Ooh, I did that wrong. Maybe just a second while I get back. There we go. Okay. Now, we're going back to the NFC North, where the Detroit Lions dominated the Chicago Bears at least for a half or so, but held on to beat the Bears at Soldier Field 19-16. This game is significant for Chicago because now that they've lost, they need Philadelphia to lose their game against the Commanders, and that will be coming up shortly. And if that happens, the Bears secure the 2 spot. All right, we'll start with the quarterbacks. First off for the Bears. Caleb Williams, 20 of 33, 212 total yards, 205 net yards, 6.4 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack taken for 7 yards. He would finish with a 56.8 QBR and a passer rating of 86.9. As for the Lions, Jared Goff was 27 of 42 for 331 total yards, 311 net passing yards, 7.9 yards per pass, 1 touchdown and 1 interception, 2 sacks taken for 15. He had a 67.7 QBR, passer rating slightly below Caleb at 86.5. David Montgomery did not attempt the pass, but did take a sack in this game for 5 yards. All right, rushing numbers for Chicago. DeAndre Swift, 10 carries, 40 yards, 4 average. Kyle Monangai, 6 for 14, only a 2.3 average. Luther Burden III, 1 rush, 10 yards. Caleb Williams, 1 rush for a single yard. That's 18 total carries for the Chicago Bears for 65 yards, 3.6 per run with no touchdowns. As for the Lions, it's the Sonic and Knuckles show again. Sonic, being Jahmyr Gibbs, had 19 carries for 80 yards at 4.2 per run. And Knuckles, a.k.a. David Montgomery, 8 carries, 42 yards, and a 5.3 average. Collectively, that's 27 carries for 122 yards at 4.5 per rush with no touchdowns. Okay, let's go to the Lions receivers now. Amon-Ra St. Brown, big game. 11 receptions, 139 yards, 15 targets, 12.6 yards per catch. Jameson Williams, 6 for 74, 8 targets, 12.3 average. Khalif Raymond, 3 for 52 on 3 targets, 17.3 average. Jahmyr Gibbs, 3 for 33 and a touchdown, 5 targets, 11 average. Isaac TeSlaa, 1 catch, 1 target, 18 yards. David Montgomery, 1 catch, 1 target, 13 yards. Anthony Firkser, 2 catches, 2 yards, 3 targets. That's 27 receptions by Detroit receivers for 331 yards. 12.3 yards per reception with 1 touchdown on 36 targets. And for the Bears, Colston Loveland, 10 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown on 13 targets for the former Michigan Wolverine, average of 9.1. Ja'Day Walker, 2 for 36 and a touchdown on 3 targets, 18 average. Luther Burden III, 3 receptions, 35 yards on 4 targets, 11.7 average. Cole Kmet, 2 receptions, 16 yards on 3 targets, average of 8. Kyle Monangai, 1 catch, 1 target, 15 yards. DJ Moore, 1 catch, 3 targets, 11 yards. DeAndre Swift, the former Lion, 1 catch, 2 targets, 8 yards. That's a total of 20 receptions by Bears receivers for 212 yards, 10.6 yards per pass or catch, with 2 touchdowns on 29 targets. All right, the Bears did have a fumble in this game. It was by Caleb Williams. As for the defense, Jack Campbell had 11 tackles with 1 pass defense. Daniel Thomas, 7 tackles. Aiden Hutchinson, 6 tackles, 1 sack in a TFL plus 2 quarterback hits. Malcolm Rodriguez, 4 tackles and a TFL. Avonte Maddox and Rock Ya-Sin, each with 4 tackles and a pass defense, plus 2 quarterback hits for Rock Ya-Sin. Derek Brooks, 3 tackles and a pass defense for the Lions. For the Bears, Tremaine Edmonds, 8 tackles. Jaquan Brisker, 8 tackles, 2 passes defense. Kevin Byard, also with 8 tackles, plus a pass defense. C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Nahshon Wright with 6 tackles each. Jalen Johnson, 5 tackles. Andrew Billings, 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, and 2 quarterback hits. T.J. Edwards, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Montez Sweat, 4 tackles, half a sack, 1 pass defense, and a quarterback hit. And Javon Dexter Sr., 3 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, and 3 quarterback hits. Okay, Bears defense had 75 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 7 passes defense, and 7 quarterback hits. For the Lions, they had 56 tackles, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, 5 passes defense, and 4 quarterback hits. All right, each team had an interception. Avonte Maddox for the Lions for no gain. Kevin Byard for the Bears for 21 yards. All right, 2 kick returns for the Lions from Tom Kennedy for 40 yards. That's an average of 20, long return of 23. 4 total kick returns for the Bears for 106 at a 26.5 average. Devin Duvernay had 3 returns for 76, 25.3 average, long of 27. Josh Blackwell had 1 kick return for 30. As for punt returns, the Lions had 3 from Khalif Raymond for 33 yards, average of 11, long return of 14. And only 1 punt return for the Bears from Devin Duvernay for 15 yards. Okay. Jake Bates for the Lions was 4 for 5 on field goals, long of 42, and 1 for 1 on PATs, giving them a total of 13 points of the 19 scored. And there were no field goals or extra points for the Bears. As for the punters, Jack Fox for the Lions, 2 punts, 93 yards, 46.5 average. 1 punt inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 59. Torrey Taylor, 4 punts, 178 yards, 44.5 average, long punt of 54. And now we're going to switch on over, wrong one, to the team numbers for this game. All right, the Lions ran 72 plays for 433 yards, 9 total drives, and an average of 6 yards per play. The Bears ran 52 plays for 270, with 8 total drives and an average of 5.2 per play. Detroit had 26 first downs, 17 passing, 7 rushing, 2 from penalties. Chicago, meanwhile, had 16 first downs, 10 passing, 4 rushing, and 2 from penalties. The Lions were 6 for 13 on third down with no fourth downs, and the Bears were 4 for 11 on third down and 1 for 2 on fourth down. All right, the Lions finished with 311 passing yards, 27 completions on 42 attempts, 6.9 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 3 sacks taken for 20 yards. And they ran the ball 27 times for 122 at 4.5 yards per rush. Detroit finished 1 for 4 in the red zone. The Bears, meanwhile, had 205 passing yards, 20 completions on 33 attempts, 6 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 1 sack taken for 7 yards. And they ran the ball just 18 times for 65 yards at 3.6 per total. and Chicago was 1 for 1 in the red zone. The Lions had 6 penalties for 35 yards, their only turnover from an interception. And 4 penalties, 25 yards for the Bears, their only turnover also from an interception. All right, neither team had a defensive or special teams touchdown. As for time of possession, it was 35 minutes, 45 seconds for the Lions, 24 minutes and 15 seconds for the Bears. All right, spread as of last Wednesday was Chicago -3 over under 50.5. I picked Chicago to win and cover. Lost both picks, so my straight up record is down to 5-5. ATS is much worse at 3-7. But I did project that this game would go under 50.5 points. 35 were scored by the two teams. So my totals record is back on the right side at 5-4-1. All right. Our next two games come from us. Our next two games come to us from the AFC West, and it was a pretty drab way to close the season in this division. We'll start off with the Las Vegas Raiders, who defeated the Kansas City Chiefs, more like upset the Kansas City Chiefs. Final was 14-12. So despite the victory, which put the Raiders at 3-14 to close the season, Las Vegas will have the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft coming up this April. The Chiefs, meanwhile, boy, it's been a rough one for them. They fall to 6-11. Their first losing record in quite some time. Okay, we're going to start with the quarterbacks. First for the Raiders. All right, Aiden O'Connell was 10 for 22 for 102 yards, 4.6 average, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 sack taken for 5 yards, only a 16.4 QBR, and a passer rating of 59.3. Kenny Pickett was 1 for 4 for 3 yards, 0.8 per pass. No touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks taken for 14. He had a 0.2 QBR and a passer rating of 0. So between those two, they went 11 of 26 for 86 net passing yards at 4 yards per pass. No touchdowns and 1 interception. 3 total sacks taken for 19 yards. And a collective passer rating of 38.1. For the Chiefs, Chris Oladokin, 11 for 17 for 58 yards, 3.4 per pass, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 sacks taken for 40 yards, 1.6 QBR, 70.2 passer rating. And then you have Shane Buechele. I think this is the 4th quarterback or something. He went 7 for 14 for 88 yards at 6.3 per pass with no touchdowns, no interceptions. He would take 5 sacks for 22 yards, 5.7 QBR, passer rating of 69.9. So Chiefs quarterbacks collectively went 18 for 31 for 84 net passing yards at 4.7 per pass. With no touchdowns, no interceptions, they would take a total of 8 sacks for 62 yards and a collective passer rating of 70.1. All right, rushing-wise for the Raiders, Ashton Jeanty is probably the only name that needs to be mentioned for the Raiders. 26 carries, 87 yards, 3.3 average. All told, 32 rush attempts for Vegas for 118, 3.7 average with no touchdowns. And for the Chiefs, Rashad Smith, 12 carries, 56 yards, and a 4.7 average. Kareem Hunt, 5 for 14, 2.8 average. Damian Pierce, 4 carries, 10 yards, 2.5 average. Chiefs ran 23 times for 84 yards at 3.7 per run, but no touchdowns. On to the Raiders receivers. Michael Mayer, 3 receptions, 47 yards, 5 targets, 15.7 average. Trey Tucker, 2 for 30 yards, 6 targets, 15 average. 11 total receptions for the Raiders for 105, 9.5 yards per reception with no touchdowns on 26 targets. And for the Chiefs, Hollywood Brown, 3 receptions, 64 yards, 6 targets, 21.3 average. Noah Gray, 3 for 30 on 5 targets, 10 average. Kareem Hunt, 3 receptions, 21 yards, 4 targets, and a 7 average. Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 for 13 on 2 targets, 6.5 average. Travis Kelce in what could be his final ever game. 3 receptions, 12 yards, 6 targets, 4 average. Jalen Royals, 2 for 4 on 3 targets at 2 per catch. And Brashad Smith, 2 catches, 2 yards on 4 targets. That's a total of 18 receptions for Kansas City receivers for 146 yards. Only 8.1 yards per catch with no touchdowns on 30 targets. Okay, the Chiefs had 3 fumbles in this game. 2 lost fumbles by Chris Oladokun and one fumble by Travis Kelce. The Raiders would fumble the ball twice. 1 lost fumble by Dylan Lobby and 1 by Alex Bachman. All right, looking at the defenses. Okay, Tyree Wilson has 6 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hits. Tommy Eichenberg, 6 tackles and a pass defense. Devin White, 6 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. Eric Stokes, 5 tackles and a tackle for loss. Jamal Adams, Landon Roberts, and Darnay Holmes, each with 4 tackles. Charles Snowden, 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits. And Malcolm Kuntz with 3 tackles, half a sack, and 2 quarterback hits. For the Chiefs, Nick Bolton had a game-high 9 tackles plus a TFL. Cooper McDonald, 7 tackles and a TFL. Noel Williams, 6 tackles, a sack, a TFL, 2 passes defense, and a QB hit. Brian Cook, 6 tackles. Drew Tranquil, 5 tackles and a TFL. Ethan Downs, 5 tackles. Derek Nandi, 4 tackles. Shamari Carter, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Chris Jones, 3 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs, and 2 quarterback hits. All right. The Chiefs defense had a total of 74 tackles, 3 sacks, 8 TFLs, 7 passes defense, and 5 QB hits. And for the Raiders, they had 63 tackles, a season-high 8 sacks. They had 7 tackles for loss, 5 passes defense, and a season-high 14 QB hits. No interceptions for the Raiders defense. There is one by the Chiefs, though, by Shamari Carter. As for kick returns, the Raiders had 6 total for 165 at an average of 27.5. 5 of those returns from Zamir White for 145 and 1 from Darren Lobby for 20. As for punt returns, Chiefs had 4 from Brashad Smith for 13 yards, and the Raiders had 5 from Alec Bachman for 25 yards. Harrison Butker, 4 for 4 on field goals, long of 47, no PATs. He would score all 12 of Kansas City's points. Daniel Carlson, also 4 for 4 on field goals, long of 60 with no extra points. He would also score 12 points. As for Butker, his longest field goal was 47 yards. Matt Araiza for the Chiefs with 6 punts for 308 yards, 51.3 average, 3 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 59. A.J. Cole for the Raiders, 6 punts, 307, 51.2 average, 2 inside the 20-yard line. His longest field goal was 56 yards, or rather his longest punt was 56 yards. The Raiders ran 61 plays for 204 yards, 14 total drives, 3.3 yards per play. The Chiefs ran 62 plays for 168, 15 total drives at 2.7 yards per play. Vegas had 12 first downs, 5 passing and 5 rushing, plus 2 from penalties. Kansas City had 10 first downs, 6 passing, 4 rushing, none from penalties. The Raiders 4 for 16 on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down. Kansas City 3 for 17 on third down, 1 for 1 on fourth down. Okay. The Raiders had 86 passing yards, 11 completions on 26 attempts, 3 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 3 sacks taken for 19 yards. They ran the ball 32 times for 118, averaging 3.7, and they finished 0 for 2 in the red zone. The Chiefs had 84 passing yards, 18 completions on 31 attempts, 2 for 2 or 2.2 yards per pass, with no sacks or no interceptions taken, or no interceptions thrown rather, and 8 sacks taken for 62 yards. Sorry about that. They ran the ball 23 times at 84 yards, also 3.7 yards per rush, and they would also finish 0 for 2 in the red zone. Kansas City had 7 penalties for 45 yards. Their 2 turnovers coming from the 2 lost fumbles. They had no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession 29 minutes 16 seconds. Meanwhile, the Raiders had just 2 penalties for 10 yards. They also had 2 turnovers, one from a lost fumble, the other from an interception. They also had no defensive or special team scores. Time of possessions 30 minutes and 44 seconds. All right. The spread as of Wednesday last week is KC -5 over under 37. I picked the Chiefs to win and to cover. But boy, were we presently surprised as the Raiders took the win. All right, we are now 5-6 straight up, 3-8 ATS. Over-unders are 6, 4, and 1 as I projected this game to go under 37 points. We had 26 total points in this one. And then to wrap up our journey through the AFC West, the Denver Broncos officially lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC by taking down the Los Angeles Chargers and their reserves 19-3. The Broncos again claimed the top seed in the AFC with a record of 14-3. Meanwhile, the Chargers at 11-6, they will go into the playoffs as the number 7 seed. Starting off with the quarterbacks. First for the Broncos, Bo Nix was 14-23 for 141, 6.1 yards per pass, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 4 sacks taken for 17. He had a 45.6 QBR, passer rating of 78.4. The Broncos as a team had 124 net passing yards. For the Chargers, Trey Lance in for Justin Herbert went 20-44 for 136, 3.1 yards per pass, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 sacks taken for 32, 20.1 QBR, 43.4 passer rating. LA would finish with a total of 104 net passing yards. All right, rush-wise, for Denver, Bo Nix, 8 carries, 49 yards, 6.1 average. Jaleel McLaughlin, 6 for 41, 6.8 average. RJ Harvey, 15 carries, 28 yards, 1.9 average. Tyler Batty, 2 for -2 yards. That's a total of 31 rush attempts for the Broncos for 116 yards, 3.7 yards per run with no touchdowns. For the Chargers, Bo Nix, 9 or not Bo Nix, but rather Trey Lance, 9 carries, 69 yards, 7.7 average. Jarrett Patterson, 8 for 29 yards, 3.6 average. Kamani Vidal, 3 for 12 yards, that's an average of 4. And Hassan Haskins ran once for 3 yards. That's a total of 21 rush attempts for the Chargers for 113 yards, 5.4 yards per rush with no touchdowns. On to the Broncos receivers. Evan Ingram, 3 for 45, 4 targets, 15 average. Pat Bryant, 4 for 31 on 5 targets, 7.8 average. Tyler Batty, 2 catches, 28 yards, 2 targets, 14 average. That's a total of 14 receptions for the Broncos for 141 yards. 10.1 yards per reception with no touchdowns on 23 targets. For the Chargers, Keenan Allen, 7 receptions, 36 yards, 13 targets, 5.1 average. Trey Harris, 2 for 28 on 6 targets, 14 average. Keandre Lambert-Smith, 2 for 24 yards, 5 targets, 12 average. Oronde Gaston, 2 for 23 on 2 targets, 11.5 average. Jarrett Patterson, 3 for 8 yards, 4 targets, 2.7 average. All told, that's 20 receptions for the Chargers for 136, 6.8 yards per play, 6.8 yards per catch. No touchdowns on 38 targets. Okay, there was one lost fumble by the Chargers by Trey Lance, recovered by Savion Jones of the Broncos. On to the defenses now. Jason Stern had 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, pass defense, and a QB hit. Alex Singleton, 7 tackles and a pass defense. Jaquan McMillan, 6 tackles, 2 passes defense, and he scored a touchdown defensively. Riley Moss, 6 tackles, 2 passes defense as well. Devin Key, 4 tackles. Jade Barron, 4 tackles and a pass defense. Iomi Awarzarike, 4 tackles, 1 sack, tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits. For the Chargers, Tony Jefferson had 8 tackles to lead the way. Marlo Wax, 7 tackles and a TFL. Delshon Phillips, 7 tackles, a sack, and a TFL plus 2 quarterback hits. Otito Ogbania, 5 tackles, 1 half sack, a tackle for loss, and a quarterback hit. Tarheeb Still, 5 tackles, TFL. Marcus May with 5 tackles. Cam Hart, 4 tackles. Odafe Owe, 4 tackles, half a sack, and a quarterback hit. And Jamari Caldwell had 4 tackles. All right. 67 tackles for the Broncos defense, with 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 8 passes defense, 8 quarterback hits, and a defensive touchdown. The Chargers had 63 tackles, 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 7 quarterback hits. Lone interception by the Broncos defense by Jaquan McMillan. It ended up being a pick 6 for 45 yards. Okay, all 3 kick returns were by the Chargers. Keandre Lambert-Smith, 2 for 45, 22.5 average, long of 27. And 1 for Jarrett Patterson for 21. So that's 3 total kick returns for 66 yards, 22 average. Okay, 1 punt return for the Rams from Darius Davis for 11 yards. 2 punt returns from the Broncos by Marvin Mims Jr. for 36 yards. Cameron Dicker, 1 for 1 on field goals, long of 30 and no extra points. Those would be the only points LA would score in this game. Will Lutz, 4 for 4 on field goals, long of 41, 1 for 1 on extra points. And 13 of the 19 Bronco points were scored by Lutz. As for the punters, J.K. Scott, 7 punts, 355 yards, 50.7 average. 1 touchback, 4 inside the 20-yard line. Long punt of 58. Jeremy Crawshaw, 6 punts, 287 yards, 47.8 average, 1 touchback, and 1 punt inside the 20-yard line. Long punt of 54. All right, now we're about to jump over to the team numbers for this one. All right, the Broncos ran 58 plays for 240, 12 total drives, 4.1 yards per play. Chargers 69 total plays, 217 yards, 12 total drives, 3.1 per play. All right, both teams had 13 first downs, 7 passing first downs and 6 rushing for the Chargers, 6 passing first downs and 7 rushing for the Broncos. LA was 7 of 20 on third down and 3 for 5 on fourth down, while Denver was 5 for 15 on third down with no fourth downs. All right, the Broncos had 124 yards passing, 14 completions on 23 attempts, 4.6 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown, 4 sacks taken for 17 yards. They ran 31 times for 116 yards at 3.7 per rush and finished 0 for 3 in the red zone. The Chargers had 104 passing yards, 20 completions on 44 attempts, 2.2 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 4 sacks taken for 32. They ran 21 times for 113 yards, 5.4 yards per run, and they were 0 for 2 in the red zone. 5 penalties, 25 yards for the Chargers, 2 turnovers, including a fumble lost and an interception. No defense or special teams touchdowns, time of possession 25 minutes and 59 seconds. 1 penalty, 5 yards for the Broncos. No turnovers, 1 defensive touchdown on the pick 6. Time of possession was 34 minutes and 1 second. All right, the spread here was Denver minus 12.5, over under was 37.5. I picked the Broncos to win, but I did take the Chargers with the points. So I'm going to lose that ATS pick. So ATS, I'm now 3-9. Straight up is 6-6. And I did take the over 37.5 on the total. There was only 22 points. So now my totals record is 6-5-1 as we're now into the final 4 games of the season. All right. Our next 2 games will come to us from the AFC East. Won this season by the New England Patriots as they capped 2025 with a 38-10 blowout victory over the Miami Dolphins. So the Patriots at 14-3 will go into the playoffs as the 2 seed in the AFC after Denver's victory. The Dolphins, meanwhile, will close the year 7-10. On to the quarterbacks. We'll start off with the Patriots. Drake May began the game and went 14 of 18 for 191, 10.6 yards per pass. 1 touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks taken, 87.2 QBR. Very impressive passer rating of 129.4. He would leave early in the second half, and that would leave way for Josh Dobbs. 3 for 4 for 23 yards, 5.8 per play, or 5.8 per pass, rather. No touchdowns, no interceptions, also no sacks taken, 3.5 QBR, 88.5 passer rating. So between Drake May and Josh Dobbs, they went 17 for 22 for 214 yards, 9.7 yards per pass with 1 touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks taken, 122.2 passer rating combined. And for the Dolphins, Quinn Ewers, 16 of 23, 137 yards, averaging 6 yards per pass with 1 touchdown and 1 interception, 4 sacks taken for 20 yards, 29.7 QBR, 81.2 passer rating. Zach Wilson went 0 for 2 and went 0 for 2 throwing the ball, had a 0.4 QBR and a 39.6 passer rating. Dolphins passers went 16 of 25 for 117 net passing yards, 5.5 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 sacks taken for 20 yards, all from Ewers. Collective passer rating of 74.9. All right, Patriots rushers. Ramondre Stevenson, 7 carries, 131 yards, 18.7 average, and 2 touchdowns. Travion Henderson, 13 carries, 53 yards, 4.1 average, and also 2 touchdowns. Drake May would run the ball 5 times for 41 yards at an 8.2 clip. In total, 34 rush attempts for the Patriots for 243. That is 7.1 yards per run and 4 touchdowns, both from their running backs. And for the Dolphins, Jalen Wright, 13 carries, 23 yards, 1.8 average. Malik Washington, 2 for 22, 11 average. Quinn Ewers ran once for 9 yards. Ollie Gordon ran 9 times for 9 yards. That's 25 total rushes for the Dolphins for only 63 yards. That's 2.5 yards per rush with no touchdowns. All right, Patriots receivers. Hunter Henry, 5 for 56, 5 targets, 11.2 average. Stephon Diggs, 3 for 43 on 3 targets, 14.3 average. Efton Chisholm, 1 catch, 1 target, 35 yards. Demario Douglas, 2 for 29 on 3 targets, 14.5 average. Kayshon Boutte, 2 for 24 yards, 4 targets, and a 12 average. Ramondre Stevenson, 2 catches, 22 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets, 11 average. Austin Hooper, 1 catch, 1 target for 5 yards. Jack Westover, 1 catch, 1 target for no yards. Patriots receivers with a total of 17 catches for 214, 12.6 yards per catch with 1 touchdown on 20 targets. And for the Dolphins, Theo Weiss Jr., 3 for 44 yards, 5 targets, 14.7 average. Greg Dulcich, 3 for 31 on 4 targets, 10.3 average. Taj Washington, 2 for 26 on 3 targets, 13 average. Jalen Wright, 2 catches, 17 yards, 2 targets, and an 8.5 average. That's 16 receptions for the Dolphins for 137 at 8.6 per catch, with 1 touchdown on 24 targets. All right. 2 total fumbles by the Dolphins, both committed by Jalen Wright, one of which he would lose to New England's Elijah Ponder. The other will be recovered by Julian Hill. All right, on defense, you have 8 tackles and a tackle for loss for Jelani Tavai. Christian Ellis, 8 tackles. Jack Gibbons, 5 tackles, 2 passes defense. Anthony Jennings, 4 tackles, 2 passes, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. Christian Gonzalez and Craig Woodson with 4 tackles each. And for the Dolphins, Jordan Brooks, 9 tackles. Tyrell Dodson, 8 tackles. Dante Trader Jr. and Jordan Phillips, 6 tackles apiece. Ashton Davis, Afidu Melifonwu, and KJ Britt with 5 tackles. And Jack Jones with 4. All right. So that is 68 tackles for the Dolphins defense. No sacks, 1 TFL, 1 pass defense, and only 3 quarterback hits. As for the Patriots, they had 62 tackles, 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 4 passes defense, and 9 quarterback hits. Lone interception in the game by the Patriots defense from Jalen Hawkins. As for kick returns, Malik Washington, 2 for 54 yards, average of 27. Ernest Johnson had the 2 kick returns for the Patriots for 51 yards, 25.5 average, long return of 29. Only 1 punt return for the Dolphins, as that was Malik Washington for 2 yards. None for the Patriots. As for the kickers, Riley Patterson for Miami was 1 for 1 on field goals, long of 52, 1 for 1 on extra points. That's a total of 4 points scored. Andy Borregales, 1 for 2 on field goals, long of 59, 5 for 5 on extra points. He would score 8 points. Moving on to the punters, Jake Bailey for the Dolphins, 6 punts for 245 yards, 40.8 average, long punt of 50. Bryce Behringer, 3 punts, 155 yards, 51.7 average, 3 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 56 yards. All right, team numbers now. All right, the Patriots would run 56 plays for 457 on 12 total drives, 8.2 yards per play. The Dolphins ran 54 plays for 180, 11 total drives, and 3.3 yards per play. The Patriots had 22 first downs, 8 passing, 12 rushing, 2 from penalties. They were 5 for 10 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. The Dolphins had 13 first downs, 7 passing, 5 rushing, 1 from penalty, 5 of 13 on third down, and 0 for 1 as well on fourth down. The Patriots had 214 yards passing, 17 completions on 22 attempts, that's 9.7 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown, and no sacks taken. They had 243 yards on 34 rush attempts, averaging 7.1 yards per rush. Meanwhile, the Dolphins had 117 passing yards, 16 completions on 25 attempts at 4 yards per pass, with 1 interception thrown and 4 sacks taken for 20 yards. They had 25 rush attempts for 63 yards, 2.5 average. Miami finished 1 for 3 in the red zone, while New England was 4 for 5. There we go. That's off now. All right, 7 penalties, 52 yards for the Dolphins. They had 2 turnovers, 1 lost fumble, and 1 interception. No defense or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession, 29 minutes, 11 seconds. The Patriots had 4 penalties for 52 yards with no turnovers, no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Their time of possession was 30 minutes and 49 seconds. All right, the spread in this one was New England minus 11, and the over-under is 45.5. I took the Patriots to win and to cover in my lock of the week, and I got all 3 picks. So I'm now 7-6 straight up, 4-9 ATS. And on totals, I'm 7-5-1 as I projected the game to go over 45.5. We had 48 points in this one. All right, the second game out of the AFC East saw the Buffalo Bills beat down the New York Football Jets by a final of 35-8 in what possibly could have been the final game ever at the current Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York. The Bills will be moving into the new Highmark Stadium next season. So the Bills will finish the regular season at 12-5. They will have the number 6 seed in the AFC, while the Jets close with a record of 3-14. We'll start with the quarterbacks, beginning off with the Bills. Mitchell Trubisky, 22 of 29, 259 yards, 8.9 yards per pass, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks taken. He had a 90.8 QBR, QB rating of 142.1. And for the Jets, Brady Cook, 11 of 22, 60 total yards, 53 net passing yards, 2.7 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 1 sack taken for 7 yards, 24 QBR, 71.4 passer rating. All right, looking at the Bills rushers, Ray Davis, 21 carries, 151, and a 7.2 average. Ty Johnson, 13 carries, 36 yards, and a touchdown, 2.8 average. This is a total of 43 rushes for 211 yards at 4.9 per run and a touchdown. For the Jets, Khalil Herbert, 12 carries, 42 yards, 3.5 per run. Kene Nwangwu, 7 carries, 18 yards, 2.6 average. Jets ran the ball 23 times for 69 yards at a total of 3 yards per rush. On to the receivers. Keon Coleman, 2 for 49, 4 targets, 24.5 average. Dalton Kincaid, 3 for 48, 3 targets, and an average of 16. Gabe Davis, 5 for 41 and a touchdown, 8.2 average. Kalike Latu, 3 for 31 yards, 3 targets, 10.3 average. Dawson Knox, 2 for 24, 2 targets, and a touchdown on an average of 12. Ray Davis, 2 for 23, 1 touchdown, 2 targets, 11.5 per catch. Reggie Gilliam, 1 catch, 22 yards on 1 target. Ty Johnson, 2 catches, 20 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets, average of 10. Total of 22 receptions for the Bills for 259, 11.8 average, 4 touchdowns on 28 targets. For the Jets, Isaiah Williams, 5 catches, 24 yards, 7 targets, 4.8 average. John Mechie, 3 catches, 20 yards on 4 targets, 6.7 average. Only 11 receptions by the Jets for 60 yards. That's 5.5 per catch, with 1 touchdown from Andrew Beck on 22 targets. No fumbles by either team. Will go straight to the defenses. For the Bills, Dorian Williams with 8 tackles and a TFL. Joe Andreessen, 7 tackles, 2 TFLs, and a quarterback hit. Larry Ogunjobi, 6 tackles and a TFL. Kenyatta Jenkins and Jordan Hancock with 5 tackles each, and Darian Mathis with 4 tackles. For the Jets, Keydron Smith, 15 tackles. Malachi Moore, 10 tackles. Trey Brown, 8 tackles. Samuel Womack III with 7 tackles and a pass defense. Jamie Sherwood, 7 tackles. Jasir Taylor, 5 tackles. Harrison Phillips, 4 tackles and a tackle for loss. Eric Watts, 4 tackles. Jawan Briggs, 4 tackles and a TFL. And Quincy Williams with 3 tackles and a pass defense. All right. Jets defense had 79 tackles. No sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense, and 0 quarterback hits. As for the Bills, they have 53 tackles, 1 sack, 5 tackles for loss, 2 passes defense, and 4 quarterback hits. Neither team had an interception in this one. All right, the Jets had 5 kick returns from Isaiah Williams for 142 yards. That's 28.4 per return, long of 49. And 1 kick return for Ray Davis for 22 yards. 1 punt return for the Bills. That was from Keon Coleman for 2 yards. All right. Matt Prater for the Bills. No field goals, but 3 for 3 on extra points. And for the Jets, Austin McNamara had 5 punts, 211 yards, 42.2 average with 2 inside the 20-yard line and a long punt of 50. So there were no kicking numbers for the Jets and no punting for the Bills in this one. Shifting over to the team totals. The Bills ran 72 plays for 470 with 9 total drives, 6.5 yards per play. The Jets 46 plays for 122 yards, 8 total drives, 2.7 yards per play. All right, Buffalo had 30 first downs. That's right, 30. 16 passing, 13 rushing, and 1 from penalties. New York had just 9 first downs. 5 passing, 3 rushing, and 1 from penalties. The Bills were 6 for 13 on 3rd down, 3 for 5 on 4th down. The Jets were 5 for 13 on 3rd down and 1 for 3 on 4th down. The Bills had 259 passing yards, 22 completions on 29 attempts, 8.9 yards per pass. No interceptions thrown, no sacks taken. The Bills also ran 43 times for 211 yards, 4.9 yards per play. Very impressive showing for Buffalo in the red zone, going 5 for 6. The Jets, meanwhile, have 53 passing yards, 11 completions on 22 attempts, 2.3 yards per pass, no interceptions thrown, 1 sack taken for 7 yards, 23 carries, 69 yards, 3 yards per rush, and they were 1 for 1 from the red zone. The Jets had 4 penalties for 27 yards. The Bills had 3 penalties for 28. Neither team turned the ball over. And neither team had a defensive or special teams touchdown either. Time of possession was Buffalo 38 minutes 20 seconds and New York 21 minutes 40 seconds. All right, the spread in this one is Buffalo -7 and the over-under is 37.5. I took the Bills to win and to cover. I expected a lower scoring game than this, but I'll take it. That's 8-6 straight up and 5-9 against the spread, but I did miss the total in this one. I projected this game to go under 37.5 points. We have 43 points total, 35 of those by the Bills. So my totals record is 7-6-1. Okay, I will be right back. I have to go to the bathroom, so give me about a couple minutes, and I'll be back real shortly. Okay, hope you didn't miss me too terribly. Alright, so we just wrapped up our 2 games in the AFC East. Now we're going to go to the NFC East for the last Sunday afternoon game of the regular season. And it sees the Washington Commanders upset the Philadelphia Eagles by a final score of 24-17. Now, had Philly won this game, they would be the number 2 seed in the NFC after Chicago's loss to the Lions. But the Eagles will go into the playoffs with the number 3 seed. We'll kick it off with the quarterbacks first. Josh Johnson, 14 of 22, 131 yards, 6 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. No sacks taken. He had an 89.4 QBR, passer rating of 76.1. And for the Eagles, Tanner McKee starting in place of Jalen Hurts, who, like many of the starters, were getting rest in this game. McKee went 21 of 40 for 241 yards, 6 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He would take 3 sacks for 14, had a 22.4 QBR and a passer rating of 68.9. And the Eagles as a team had 227 net passing yards. All right, rushing wise, Chris Rodriguez Jr. for Washington at 16 carries, 65 yards and a touchdown, 4.1 average. Josh Johnson, 9 for 45 yards and a touchdown, average of 5. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 13 carries, 29 yards, and a 2.2 average. The Commanders would run the ball 41 times for 143 yards, 3.5 yards per run, and 2 touchdowns. For the Eagles, Tank Bixby, 16 carries, 75 yards, and a touchdown at a 4.7 average. Only 19 carries for Philadelphia for 80 yards and a touchdown at a 4.2 average. All right, Scary Terry McLaurin, 4 catches, 57 yards, 4 targets, 14.3 average. Deebo Samuel, 2 catches for 20 yards, 5 targets, 10 average. John Bates had 2 catches for 13 and a touchdown on 2 targets. That's a 6.5 average. Only 14 receptions for the Commanders for 131 yards, 9.4 yards per reception, with 1 touchdown on 19 targets. For the Eagles, Devontae Smith, probably the only starter that played. He had 3 receptions for 52 yards on 4 targets, averaging 17.3. He played because he wanted to get to 1,000 receiving yards, and he does so. Jahan Dotson, the former Commander, had 3 catches, 40 yards on 8 targets, averaging 13.3. Darius Cooper, 3 catches, 33 yards on 5 targets, averaging 11. 1 big catch on the lone target for Tank Bixby for 31 yards. Kalen Granson, 4 for 30 yards, 5 targets, 7.5 average. Grant Calcaterra, 2 catches, 21 yards on 3 targets, and a touchdown, averaging 10.5. Eagles receivers had 21 receptions for 241 yards, 11.5 yards per catch, with 1 touchdown on 34 targets. All right, Washington did have 3 fumbles in this game from Deebo Samuel and Ja'Cory Crosby-Merritt, both of which would be recovered, and 1 fumble lost by Josh Johnson. All right, on the Commanders' defense, Jonathan Jones had 7 tackles, Jeremy Reeves 7 tackles and 2 passes defense, Mike Sanderstel 6 tackles and a pass defense, Bobby Wagner 5 tackles, Deron Payne 4 tackles, a sack, and a TFL plus 2 quarterback hits, Jordan McGee and Javon Kinlaw with 4 tackles each, plus a TFL for Kinlaw. On the Eagles side, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. had a game-high 12 tackles, plus a TFL and 2 quarterback hits. Jahad Campbell, 10 tackles and a pass defense. Michael Carter, 9 tackles. Sidney Brown and Byron Young, 7 tackles each. Keely Ringo, 5 tackles, a TFL and a pass defense. And Josh Uche had 5 tackles. Brandon Graham had 4 tackles. All right, the Eagles defense had a total of 76 tackles with no sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 5 passes defense, and 4 quarterback hits. While the Commanders had 55 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 passes defense, and 6 quarterback hits. Each team had an interception. Jeremy Reeves for Washington returned for 28 yards, and Jalen Hunt for Philadelphia. 1 kick return for the Commanders from Treylon Burks for 22 yards. 2 kick returns for Philadelphia's Will Shipley for 55 yards, 27.5 average. Long return of 29. All right, there was 1 punt return by the Commanders for River Craycraft, and 2 for the Eagles and Britton Colby for 20 yards. Jake Moody, 1 for 2 on field goals, long of 56, 3 for 3 on extra points. He would score 6 points. Jake Elliott, 1 for 1 on field goals, long of 39, 2 for 2 on extra points. He would score 5 points. On to the punters now. Tress Way, 3 punts, 159 yards. That's an average of 53. 1 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 71. And for the Eagles, you got Braden Mann, 3 punts, 115 yards, only a 38.3 average with 1 inside the 20-yard line. His longest punt, only 44 yards. All right, now to the team numbers in this one. The Eagles read 62 plays for 307 yards, 10 total drives, 5 yards per play. The Commanders ran 63 plays for 274, 11 total drives and an average of 4.3 per play. Washington had 25 first downs, 9 passing, 10 rushing, and 6 from penalties. Ouch. And Philly had 18 first downs, 13 passing, 5 rushing, and none from penalties. The Commanders were 6 for 11 on third down and 1 for 1 on fourth down, while the Eagles were 6 for 14 on third down and 0 for 3 on fourth down. All right, Philadelphia had 227 passing yards, 21 completions on 40 attempts, 5.3 yards per pass. 1 interception thrown and 3 sacks taken for 14 yards. We would run 19 times for 80 yards at 4.2 per rush, and we finished 2 for 3 in the red zone. The Commanders had 131 passing yards, 14 completions on 22 attempts, 6 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, and no sacks taken. They would run 41 times for 143, averaging 3.5 per run, and they finished 3 for 4 in the red zone. The Commanders had 4 penalties for 19 yards, 2 turnovers, 1 from a lost fumble, the other from the interception. They had no defense or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession was 34 minutes and 9 seconds. The Eagles, meanwhile, had 9 penalties for 123 yards. Their only turnover coming from an interception. They had no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession, 25 minutes and 51 seconds. All right, the spread in this one was Philly minus 3.5, and the over-under was 39. I picked the Eagles to win and to cover. Big reason because we wanted that number 2 pick, or that number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. Unfortunately, it did not turn out well. 8-7 straight up, 5-10 ATS. And on totals, I projected this game would go over 39. We have 41 points. So that's 8-6-1 on my over-unders this week, with one more game to go in this 2025 regular season. And this is the winner-take-all game in the AFC North, as the Pittsburgh Steelers, in a very entertaining game, knock off the Baltimore Ravens 26-24. So the Steelers go to 10-7. They lock up the AFC North title and the conference's number 4 seed. As for the 8-9 Ravens, they are out of playoff contention. So we're going to start with the quarterbacks, beginning with the Steelers. Aaron Rodgers, in what possibly might be his last regular season game, went 31 of 47 for 294 total yards and 290 net passing yards, 6.3 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 2 sacks taken for 4 yards. He had a 65.8 QBR and a passer rating of 90.2. For Baltimore, it was Lamar Jackson, 11 of 18 for 238 total yards. That's 222 net passing yards at 13.2 yards per pass. 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times for 16 yards. Jackson finished with a 54 QBR, but a passer rating of 121.5. All right, rushing numbers for the Steelers, not much to say here. Jaylen Warren, 14 carries, 66 yards, 4.7 average. Aaron Rodgers, 1 rush, 20 yards. Kenneth Gainwell, 5 carries, 10 yards, and a touchdown. Connor Hayward, 3 carries, 2 yards, and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith, 1 carry, 2 yards. That's 24 total carries for the Steelers for 100 yards at 4.2 yards per run with 2 touchdowns. For the Ravens, Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 126, 6.3 average. And Lamar Jackson, 4 carries, only 9 yards, and a 2.3 average. 27 total carries for the Ravens for 137 yards at 5.1 per rush with no touchdowns. On to the receivers for Pittsburgh. Kenneth Gainwell, 8 catches, 64 yards, 9 targets, 8 average. Calvin Austin III, 3 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets, 18.3 average. Pat Freiermuth, 3 for 51, 5 targets, 17 average. Adam Thielen, 3 for 43 on 6 targets, 14.3 average. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, or MVS, 5 catches, 34 yards, 7 targets, 6.8 average. And Jaylen Warren, 5 catches, 33 yards on 5 targets, 6.6 average. That's a total of 31 receptions for the Steelers for 294 yards, 9.5 yards per reception with 1 touchdown on 44 targets. For the Ravens, Zay Flowers had 4 catches, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 targets, and a 34.5 average. Devontae Walker, 2 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown on 2 targets. That's an average of 23. Isaiah Likely, 2 for 32 yards, 2 targets, and an average of 16. And Mark Andrews, 2 catches, 14 yards, 3 targets, and an average of 7. Patrick Ricard had 1 catch on 1 target for 8 yards. Meanwhile, DeAndre Hopkins had 2 targets. Derrick Henry had 1 target. Neither had a catch. That's a total of 11 receptions for the Ravens for 238 yards at 21.6 per reception with 3 touchdowns on only 17 targets. Okay, there were no fumbles by either team. We'll go straight to the defenses. Cam Hayward, 7 tackles and a quarterback hit. Keanu Benton, 7 tackles. Jalen Ramsey, 6 tackles and a pass defense. And Malik Harrison, 5 tackles. On the Ravens side, Trenton Simpson at 9 tackles. Kyle Hamilton also at 9 tackles plus a pass defense. Aloy Gelman, 8 tackles, TFL, and a pass defense. 7 tackles for Chidobe Awuzie. Marlon Humphrey, 7 tackles, a TFL, and a pass defense. Tavius Robinson, 6 tackles, 1 sack, and a quarterback hit. Travis Jones, 5 tackles, a sack, a TFL, and a quarterback hit. And Nate Wiggins with 4 tackles and 2 passes defense. All right, as for tackles, the Baltimore defense had 78 tackles. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 5 passes defense, 3 quarterback hits as well. And the Steelers defense had 50 tackles, plus 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 4 passes defense, and 5 quarterback hits. No interceptions by the Ravens defense. There was 1 by the Steelers from TJ Watt. Okay, you had a total of 5 kick returns for 130 yards by the Ravens at an average of 26. Keaton Mitchell had a couple for 60. Rashawn Ali had a couple for 51. Elajante Wester had 1 for 19. And you had 3 total kick returns for the Steelers from 91 yards. Jaylen Warren had a couple for 59, and Kenneth Gainwell had the other for 32. Ravens, no punt returns. Calvin Austin had 2 punt returns for Pittsburgh for 11 yards, 5.5 average. All right, as for the kickers, Tyler Loop for the Ravens went 1 for 2 on field goals, long of 40, and 3 for 3 on extra points. He would score 6 in this game. Chris Boswell, 2 for 2 on field goals, long of 57, and 2 for 3 on extra points. That's a total of 8 points. Jordan Stout for Baltimore had 4 punts for 191 yards, 47.8 average, 3 inside the 20-yard line, long punt of 54. Corliss Waitman for the Steelers had 3 punts for 119 yards, 39.7 average, 1 inside the 20-yard line, and a long punt of 53. As we'll go to the team numbers for this game. All right. The Steelers ran 73 plays for 390 yards, 10 total drives, 5.3 yards per play. The Ravens ran 48 total plays for 359, 10 total drives, an average of 7.5 yards per play. The Steelers had 24 first downs, 14 passing, 8 rushing, and 2 from penalties. And the Ravens had 12 first downs, 5 passing, 6 rushing, and 1 from penalties. The Steelers were 9 for 16 on third down and 1 for 2 on fourth down. And the Ravens were 4 for 12 on third down, 2 for 2 on fourth down. The Steelers finished with 290 passing yards, 31 completions on 47 attempts, 5.9 yards per pass, no interceptions, and 2 sacks taken for 4 yards. They had 24 rushes for 100 yards at 4.2 per rush. And they would finish 2 for 4 in the red zone. The Ravens had only 222 passing yards, 11 completions on 18 attempts, 10.6 yards per pass, 1 interception thrown, 3 sacks taken for 16 yards, 27 rush attempts for 137 at 5.1 per rush, and no trips in the red zone. Baltimore had 9 penalties for 78 yards. Their only turnover was from an interception, with no defensive or special teams touchdowns. Time of possession was 25 minutes and 49 seconds. The Steelers, meanwhile, had 5 penalties for 45 yards with no turnovers. They also didn't score a touchdown on defense or special teams. Time of possession for the Steelers was 34 minutes and 11 seconds. The spread in this one, not the closing spread though, is Baltimore minus 3.5, and the over-under was 41. I did pick the Ravens to win, and I picked the Ravens to cover. So I finished the week 8-8 straight up and 5-11 ATS. However, I did do well on these totals this week. I projected the game to go over 41 points. We had a total of 50. So, for the week, this final week of the season, I end up going 8-8 straight up, 5-11 against the spread, which is really bad, and 9-6-1 on over-under totals. And for the 2025 season, as I said earlier, this was a down year for me. I finished with a straight-up record of 168, 103, and 1. That's 62%, which is too low for my liking. Against the spread, I was really rough. 124, 144, and 4, which is about 46% success. And on over-under totals, I finished with a record of 138 wins, 129 losses, and 5 draws, which is a 517 win percentage. So that is about 52% around there. All right, here are my final power rankings for the 2025 season. We got the New York Jets at number 32, finishing 3-14. The Las Vegas Raiders at number 31, also 3-14. The Tennessee Titans slipped to number 30 with a record of 3-14. The Arizona Cardinals at number 29 are also 3-14. At number 28, the New York Giants with a record of 4-13. Then at 27, the Cleveland Browns with a record of 5-12. 26 is the Kansas City Chiefs with a record of 6-11. At 25, it's the New Orleans Saints, also 6-11. The Cincinnati Bengals finish at number 24 with a record of 6-11. At 23, I have the Dallas Cowboys at 7-9-1. Number 22 are the Indianapolis Colts with a record of 8-9. Jumping to number 21, you got the Washington Commanders with a record of 5-12. Maybe that's too high. The Miami Dolphins at 7-10 finish at number 20. At number 19, you got the Carolina Panthers, the NFC South champions, at 8-9. And the lowest ranked playoff team in these power rankings. Number 18 are the Minnesota Vikings at 9-8. Number 17, the Detroit Lions, also 9-8. At 16, you got the Green Bay Packers with a record of 9-7-1. Number 15 are the Atlanta Falcons at 8-9. At 14, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in 8-9. And this is the highest ranked non-playoff team in my power rankings. The Baltimore Ravens would be my highest ranked non-playoff team in the power rankings. They're at number 13, also 8-9. Then at number 12, it's the Chicago Bears with a record of 11-6. Number 11 are the LA Chargers at 11-6. At 10, the Philadelphia Eagles at 11-6. Number 9 is the Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-7. At 8, the Los Angeles Rams at 12-5. Then at 7, it's the San Francisco 49ers with a record of 12-5. At 6, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars at 13-4. At number 5 are the Buffalo Bills with a record of 12-5. Then at number 4 are the Houston Texans. And my top 3 remains the same, with the Seattle Seahawks at 14, with the Seattle Seahawks at number 3, the Denver Broncos at number 2, and the New England Patriots at number 1, all with 14-3 records. All right, we'll take a look at the wild card schedule for this weekend. But first, we're going to take one last dive into the NFL standings for the 2025 regular season. And we're going to go rather quickly through this as well. So let's dive in. So in the AFC, your top 4 division champions, you got the Denver Broncos in the AFC West, the New England Patriots in the AFC East, the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC South, and the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC North. All right, starting at the top at number 1, you've got the Denver Broncos at 14-3. They'll finish 5-1 versus the West and 9-3 in the AFC. 422 strength of schedule, 378 strength of victory. Denver wins the tiebreaker over New England based on best win percentage in common games. At number 2, that's where you'll find the New England Patriots, also 14-3. 5-1 versus the East and 9-3 in the AFC. 391 strength of schedule, 370 strength of victory. Number 3 are the Jacksonville Jaguars, champions of the AFC South with a record of 13-4. 5-1 versus the South, 10-2 in the AFC. 478 strength of schedule, 425 strength of victory. At number 4, your AFC North champion Pittsburgh Steelers at 10-7. 4-2 versus the North, 8-4 in the AFC. 503 strength of schedule, 453 strength of victory. All right, going into the playoffs, that's the 3 wild card teams are the Texans, Bills, and Chargers. Number 5 is the Houston Texans with a record of 12-5. 5-1 record versus the South, 10-2 in the AFC. 522 strength of schedule, 441 strength of victory. Houston wins the tiebreaker over Buffalo based on head-to-head winning percentage. Then at number 6, you have the Buffalo Bills at 12-5. 4-2 record versus the East and 9-3 in the AFC. 471 strength of schedule, 412 strength of victory. And in the last wild card spot goes to the number 7 team in the conference, and that's the Los Angeles Chargers at 11-6. 5-1 record versus the West, 8-4 in the AFC. 469 strength of schedule, 425 strength of victory. And out of the playoffs this season, you got the Indianapolis Colts at number 8 with a record of 8-9. 2-4 versus the South, 6-6 in the AFC. 540 strength of schedule, 382 strength of victory. Indianapolis wins the tiebreaker over Baltimore based on best win percentage in conference games. This drops the Ravens to number 9 with a record of 8-9. 3-3 versus the North, 5-7 in the AFC. 507 strength of schedule, 408 strength of victory. At number 10, the Miami Dolphins with a record of 7-10. 3-3 versus the East, 3-9 in the AFC. 488 strength of schedule, 378 strength of victory. Then at number 11, it's the Cincinnati Bengals with a record of 6-11, 3-3 versus the North, and 5-7 in the AFC. 521 strength of schedule, 451 strength of victory. Cincinnati wins the tiebreaker over Kansas City based on best win percentage in conference games. This drops the Chiefs to number 12, also with a record of 6-11. 1-5 versus the West, and 3-9 against the AFC. Double ouch. 514 strength of schedule, 363 strength of victory. At number 13 are the Cleveland Browns with a record of 5-12. 2-4 record in the North, 4-8 in the AFC. 486 strength of schedule, 418 strength of victory. And there's a three-way tie at the bottom of the conference with the Raiders, Jets, and Titans. All right, Vegas takes the number 14 spot with a record of 1-5. 3-9, or a record of 3-14 rather. They're 1-5 versus the West and 3-9 in the AFC. Sorry about that. 538 strength of schedule, 451 strength of victory. Las Vegas wins the tiebreaker over both Tennessee and New York based on best win percentage in conference games. The Jets fall to number 15 with a record of 3-14. 0-6 versus the East, 2-10 in the AFC. 552 strength of schedule, 373 strength of victory. New York wins the tiebreaker over Tennessee based on strength of victory. That bumps the Titans all the way down to number 16 with a record of 3-14. 0-6 versus the South, 2-10 in the AFC. 574 strength of schedule, 275 strength of victory. All right, now we're on to the NFC, the final NFC standings. Your division champions are the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West, the Chicago Bears in the NFC North, the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC East, and the Carolina Panthers in the NFC South. Starting at number 1 with the Seattle Seahawks with a record of 14-3. 4-2 record versus the West, 9-3 in the NFC, 498 strength of schedule, 471 strength of victory. Then taking the number 2 spot are the NFC North champion Chicago Bears with a record of 11-6. 2-4 versus the North, 7-5 in the NFC. 458 strength of schedule, 406 strength of victory. Chicago wins the tiebreaker over Philadelphia based on head-to-head winning percentage. This drops the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, down to the number 3 spot with a record of 11-6. 3-3 versus the East, 8-4 in the NFC. 476 strength of schedule, 455 strength of victory. And then at number 4, and taking the NFC South thanks to Atlanta's victory on Sunday, are the Carolina Panthers at 8-9. 3-3 versus the South, 6-6 in the NFC. 522 strength of schedule, 463 strength of victory. Carolina wins the tiebreaker over both Atlanta and Tampa Bay based on head-to-head winning percentage. All right, your wild card teams in the NFC will be the Rams, 49ers, and Packers. At number 5 are the Los Angeles Rams with a record of 12-5. 4-2 versus the West, 7-5 in the NFC. 526 strength of schedule, 485 strength of victory. Los Angeles wins the tiebreaker over San Francisco based on best win percentage in common games. This will drop the San Francisco 49ers to number 6 at 12-5. 4-2 versus the West and 9-3 in the NFC. 498 strength of schedule, 417 strength of victory. And then taking the last playoff spot at number 7 are the Green Bay Packers at 9-7-1. Crazy how they're going to be the 7th seed in this conference for the 3rd straight year. 4-2 record versus the North, 7-4-1 in the NFC. 483 strength of schedule, 431 strength of victory. Then we got a tie with the Vikings and Lions. We'll start at number 8, which is the Minnesota Vikings, 9-8. 4-2 record versus the North, 7-5 in the NFC. 514 strength of schedule, 431 strength of victory. And then the Lions at 9, also at 9-8, are 2-4 versus the North and 6-6 in the NFC. 490 strength of schedule, 428 strength of victory. Minnesota wins the tiebreaker over Detroit based on head-to-head winning percentage. Remember, the Vikings swept the Lions this season. Then we go to number 10. That's where you'll find the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a record of 8-9. 3-3 versus the South, 6-6 in the NFC. 529 strength of schedule, 485 strength of victory. Tampa Bay wins the tiebreaker over Atlanta based on best win percentage in common games. This will drop the Falcons to number 11, also with a record of 8-9. 3-3 in the South, 7-5 in the NFC. 495 strength of schedule, 449 strength of victory. At number 12 are the Dallas Cowboys with a record of 7-9-1. 4-2 versus the East, but only 4-7-1 in the NFC. 438 strength of schedule, 311 strength of victory. At 13, you got the New Orleans Saints with a record of 6-11. 3-3 versus the South, 4-8 in the NFC. 495 strength of schedule, 333 strength of victory. At 14, you got the Washington Commanders with a record of 5-12. 3-3 versus the East, 3-9 in the NFC. 507 strength of schedule, 388 strength of victory. Taking the 15th spot are the New York Giants at 4-13. 2-4 versus the East, 2-10 in the NFC. 524 strength of schedule, 478 strength of victory. And taking the basement in the NFC, sitting at number 16 are the Arizona Cardinals with a record of 3-14. 0-6 versus the West, 3-9 in the NFC. 571 strength of schedule, 422 strength of victory. And quickly, let's go through the schedule for Super Wild Card Weekend. It all kicks off on Saturday as the Los Angeles Rams visit the Carolina Panthers in the 5 versus 4 matchup in the NFC. That is Saturday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And then you'll have the 7 versus 2 in the NFC as the Green Bay Packers visit the Chicago Bears Saturday night at 8 p.m. on Prime. The game will be locally televised in Chicago, Green Bay, and Milwaukee. All right, then you have a triple header on Sunday. It all begins with the 6 versus 3 matchup in the AFC as the Buffalo Bills battle the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sunday at 1 p.m. on CBS. That's then followed by the 6 versus 3 matchup in the NFC as the San Francisco 49ers go cross-country to face the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. Sunday afternoon at 4:30 on Fox. And then the nightcap on Sunday night, you've got the 7 versus 2 in the AFC as the Los Angeles Chargers visit the New England Patriots. That's Sunday night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern on NBC. In fact, it's at 8 p.m. Eastern. Sorry about that. And then Super Wild Card Weekend wraps up on Monday night as you have the 5 versus 4 matchup in the AFC. The Houston Texans, with the league's #1 defense, take on Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you can catch that game Monday night at 8:15 on ESPN and ABC. And that's going to wrap it up for this Week 18 edition of The Week That Was, as we'll look at player and team statistical numbers from every game in week number 18. Hey, Model Lorianne is in here. Thanks for joining. We also ran through my final power rankings of the 2025 campaign. Plus, looked at the final standings for the regular season and ran down the wild card weekend schedule, which again kicks off with 2 games on Saturday, then it continues Sunday with 3 games, and then wraps up on Monday night. So a big shout out to everyone that has joined me all season long. We will continue this throughout the playoffs. In fact, my next video will be out on Thursday, as we'll pick all 6 Super Wild Card Weekend games coming up. So make sure you join me. For now, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Ooh, it's time for me to get out of here because I've been talking for almost 3.5 hours. Anyway, Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the pigskin, y'all. Peace out.